Zenian Academy's first-year students believe today is just an ordinary class until Professor Jera unveils a rare mana measuring device featuring a crystal orb. She explains that the purpose of the lesson is to determine if a monster is hiding among them. Argon goes first, and the orb reveals a quality of 4 and a quantity of 17, already surpassing last year's average. Next, Furion steps up and achieves a quality of 6 and a quantity of 20, causing the room to gasp in surprise. Meanwhile, the sleepy kid Damien wakes up, touches the orb, and shatters everyone's pride with a quality score of 9 and an astonishing quantity of 67. Now, all eyes turn to Asta. He tries to keep a low profile, but the system flashes a score of 10, then displays an error because the threshold has been exceeded. Asta forces a rerun and fakes a harmless 3 for quality and 15 for quantity. There's a reason our main character is hiding his true powers. Not long ago, Asta, a troubleshooter mage for House Declan, stole a tome in his quest to prove himself. He is tracked down by assassins, but he takes them all out, leaving the last one alive to torture for information. Asta holds the hunter down with his magic power, asking how to use the important tome. The hunter reveals that he doesn't know. Asta begins to realize that Declan himself must not understand the worth of the tome. If he did, he wouldn't have buried it in a rusty basement. Yet, they still chased him down for it, even though Declan seems unaware of how to use the tome. The hunter suggests that Asta hand over the tome so he can help him beg for mercy from the head of the house. Asta refuses the offer, informing the hunter that he intends to end him. Suddenly, a portal opens behind Asta, and he feels a terrifying and overwhelming aura emerge from it. The aura emanates from a cool-looking man holding a cane. He introduces himself as Farron Declan, the head of House Declan. Farron tells Asta that he would like the tome back, and after that, they can have a quick chat. Asta feels overwhelmed by the power radiating from Farron. He has been a troubleshooter for over 10 years, spending half of that time with House Declan, but this is the first time he will lay eyes on the head of the house. House Declan is the most powerful magical family on the eastern continent, and rumors suggest that the head of the house is the strongest mage in its history. Asta can sense the danger that Farron poses, but he decides to remain calm. He asks Farron if he is interested in taking someone else's loot, a bold and shameless act. Farron laughs at this, but Asta feels nervous, fully aware of what it means for the head of the house to be present. Asta is compelled to acknowledge that Farron possesses the most overwhelming aura he has ever encountered. Farron informs Asta that he could easily kill him and seize the tome, but instead, he prefers to have a conversation. Farron expresses his desire for Asta to return to work for House Declan, promising that if Asta comes back and hands over the tome, he will forget all of Asta's sins. Farron acknowledges Asta's remarkable talent and expresses his desire not to let it go to waste. He is particularly impressed that Asta hails from the gray zone yet has mastered highly effective techniques. Farron sweetens his offer, telling Asta that he could truly soar high with the support of House Declan. After outlining all the benefits of returning to the house, Farron emphasizes the most crucial point, the return of the tome. Just then, Asta informs Farron that he has agreed to his terms, prompting a sigh of relief from Farron. However, Asta adds that he has a condition. He demands something ruthless. Asta tells Farron to hand over the seat of the house to him, and he might consider returning the tome. To demonstrate his ruthlessness, Asta finishes off the man he has been holding hostage. This infuriates Farron, who warns Asta that he might die because of the path he has chosen. Asta understands that Farron is not wrong, yet he lunges forward to attack him, eager to gauge the difference in their strength. Farron effortlessly blocks Asta's blue attack with his red shield. Recognizing the need to teach Asta a lesson, Farron decides it's time for him to understand that they are not on the same level. Standing cool while also aura farming, Farron unleashes a powerful magic blast that sends Asta flying backwards. Asta narrowly escapes being burned by the attack, and it finally dawns on him just what kind of power the head of the house possesses. He struggles to find a single opening to counterattack, but the moment Farron realizes he is lost in thought, he strikes again with another powerful attack. Farron then tells Asta that there is no need to measure their strengths because he is far superior. Soon after, Asta finds himself facing a powerful magical attack that he cannot evade. He gets smashed, but Farron holds back, making sure Asta knows this. He tells Asta that he is not ready to kill him. He just wants to talk. Asta then asks Farron what will happen if he finally agrees to return to House Declan. Farron replies that he won't believe him. Asta is glad that Farron understands this, and since they are both clear on the situation, Asta prepares another magic attack. He tells Farron that he is done being a messenger and a dog to anyone. Asta pours all his energy into the magic attack, shining brightly like lightning. He leaps toward Farron, unleashing the attack while declaring that he is not ready to back down. However, even Asta's strongest magic fails to breach Farron's defenses. Farron then prepares to demonstrate what true power looks like. Before Asta realizes it, he is struck by a powerful magic attack that sends him reflecting on his past. By the time he opens his eyes, Farron stands over him, looking down. Farron asks if he has finally seen what true power looks like. Asta admits that Farron is quite strong, and since Farron wants to talk, Asta asks if he is ready to allow him to become a troubleshooter again. Farron then tells Asta that he wants him to be more than just a troubleshooter. He wants him to be the head of the Bongshin family. Asta is shocked when he hears the offer presented to him by Farron. Realizing that House Declan is powerful enough to challenge for the throne, Asta understands they want him as the head of the Bongshin family, so he can swear fealty to them as one of their vassal houses. It finally dawns on Asta what Farron's true goal is. He reaches into his storage space and retrieves the tome. Farron smiles upon seeing this and tells Asta that he actually wants both him and the tome. Farron is relieved that Asta is finally making the right choice, but just as he reaches for the tome, Asta sets it on fire, leaving Farron in shock. Forced to confront him, Farron asks what he is doing, and Asta reveals that he never intended to give it to him. Farron assures Asta that he is going to die a very horrible death. In response, Asta reveals that he didn't become a troubleshooter for the money. He is furious that one of his teammates was devoured by Declan's young master using forbidden magic. After the incident, Declan covered it up. Farron is shocked to hear this and realizes that Asta is pursuing them for revenge. Asta clears the air, stating that he only wanted justice for his fallen teammates. He also tells Farron that he viewed his recent streak as an act of retirement. Asta then reveals that these are his final words. Once he finishes speaking, Farron sets him on fire, telling Asta to burn and regret his choices. However, as Asta burns, he screams at Farron, insisting that he has nothing to regret. Asta was prepared to throw it all away, determined never to return to work for House Declan. As the flames consumed him, he saw it as freedom, vowing that if he ever got the chance to be reborn, he would seek his revenge properly. Suddenly, Asta felt something strange, as if time had stopped. Asta is completely confused, yet for some reason, the tome remains active in his hands. He notices magic circles appearing all over his body, and this is the last thing he sees before he passes out. When Asta finally opens his eyes, he discovers he is in a rundown area where he finds himself as a beggar. He looks around and it begins to dawn on him that he has somehow returned to the past. He has gone back to when he was a kid in the gray zone. Asta makes his way to a lake, where he gazes at his reflection to confirm that he is indeed himself, but a younger version. The fire mark on his chest remains, even though he has traveled back in time. He has no idea how he returned to the past, but he is certain that the tome's magic played a role. He realizes that the tome must be significant for the head of the house to have pursued him so relentlessly. However, there is little information about the tome, leaving him uncertain. Now that he has returned to the past and been given another chance, Asta believes it is time for him to succeed in achieving his goals. He reflects on his mission and objective, which are also shared by his comrade. Asta and his comrade once discussed why they find themselves in the lower class. His comrade expressed that their lives could have been so much better if they had received an education. They wouldn't have been enslaved by the wealthy individuals who exploit them. Because of this, Asta has made plans to retire so he can build a library. Asta wants to build a library where anyone, regardless of money, status, or gender, can freely read books. In fact, he aims to take it a step further by constructing a tower. While the tower isn't essential to his vision, he simply wants to create it for the joy of building. In addition, he plans to place the secret technique of the Declan House on the first page of his book, granting even the poorest from the gray zones access to this hidden knowledge. He can already envision how dreadful the consequences will be. However, the only thing left to figure out is how he will obtain the manual. He is relishing his evil scheme when, out of nowhere, a kick suddenly strikes his cheek. He turns around to see an angry guy demanding to know where he has been. The guy continues to kick Asta, claiming he was saving a seat for him, but Asta was nowhere to be found. Asta struggles to recall this jerk who has been using him as a punching bag. Determined not to let anyone treat him like trash, Asta grabs the guy's leg and declares that he has been hit 7 times, but he plans to repay that with 70 hits. Asta punches the guy in the chest, but his own body is weak, causing him to sprain his wrist. Shocked by the injury, he remains dazed, only to be punched in the face again. The guy continues the beating he had started, leaving Asta in tears from the pain of the kicks. The beating continues until Asta spots an opening and pushes the guy into the lake. Before the guy can get back on his feet, Asta makes a run for it. The guy emerges from the water and asks why Asta is running away. Asta simply replies that he is not running, but making a tactical retreat. He assures the guy that he will remember his face. He promises to remember all the hits he landed on his opponent. As a veteran troubleshooter, the word quit is not in his vocabulary, and he is determined to get his revenge. He hides in an alley staring at his sprained wrist, unable to believe how weak his body feels after it broke from just throwing a punch. Asta decides to put his dream on hold for now and focus on training his fragile and battered body. Suddenly, a kid with a red eye appears and asks Asta if he is hungry. Asta is taken aback and asks the boy if he knows him. The boy simply replies that he has no idea who Asta is. Asta can tell that much, especially since the kid looks like a noble's child. He assumes the boy must have fallen from grace during a power struggle. Asta thinks of him as a walking pretty little bomb. The dude introduces himself as Damien. Asta is surprised that a creepy kid is staring at him and talking to him. He feels compelled to ask if Damien is mentally stable. Damien then reveals that he doesn't have a mom, and Asta chimes in, saying he doesn't have a dad, as they seem to be in a competition to see who is the best orphan. Asta suggests they go their separate ways, clearly wanting to avoid getting involved with a ticking time bomb like Damien. Moments later, Damien stands still while Asta feels increasingly creeped out. Asta is forced to ask Damien if he is leaving or not. Shockingly, Damien responds that he is going with him. Asta feels a strong urge to smack the kid, thinking it might help him return to his senses. Instead, he simply tells Damien to get away from him. Just then, Damien touches his head, wincing from the injury. Damien assures Asta that he can heal him. With a creepy smile on his face, he casts a glowing magic circle that begins to emit healing particles. Asta initially thinks it is a magic touch, but he soon realizes he is mistaken. What he is witnessing is not a magic touch, but the light of healing, a secret technique of House Blandor. It turns out that House Blandor fell because of House Declan. Asta cannot believe he has just gotten himself involved in something so dangerous. He starts to wonder why a Blandor kid is inside the gray zone, realizing that the Blandor family should still be strong at this time. While lost in his thoughts, Asta calls out to Damien, who excitedly responds, revealing his other eye, which is green. Essentially, he has two different eye colors. Seeing the kid's eyes, Asta recalls something very important that he had forgotten. The boy with the unusual eyes later grew up to become the monster of Blandor, known as the Mad Butcher, who won't even die when you try to kill him. Once Damien finishes healing Asta, he crouches down to count ants like any regular kid, leaving Asta completely confused. Before the regression, when he was still a troubleshooter, he and his comrades received orders from the Declan family to assist the Blandor family. Apparently, the Blandor family needed help because there was a monster at their estate. As Asta and his comrades made their way there, they believed the monster would be an ogre or something similar. However, upon arriving at the estate, they were met with a gruesome scene. It was Damien tearing people apart as if it were nothing. He cast healing magic endlessly, laughing maniacally as he fought like a madman. This was how he earned the name the Monster of Blandor, the butcher who would not die no matter how hard you tried to kill him. Asta decided to forget about his memories and focus on the present. He wonders why a direct descendant of the Blandor family is standing right in front of him. As the only heir to the house, it feels strange that he finds himself in this gray zone. Just then, Damien makes an unusual suggestion. He tells Asta that they should eat, explaining that his mother always said he needs to eat to stay healthy. He attributes Asta's weakness to the fact that he hasn't been eating. Asta has no choice but to admit that the kid is actually right. He then asks Damien if he has any money with him. Damien replies that he does, and pulls out a pouch full of gold coins. Asta's face lights up with excitement at the sight, and he immediately declares that he and Damien are friends. Damien is taken aback by this sudden friendship, but Asta skillfully plays his way around the situation. He then tells Damien that friends usually share what they have. Damien, falling for Asta's tricks, agrees with him. Asta suggests they get something to eat, and Damien agrees. After finishing their meal, they retire to a shelter. Asta feels his belly filled with food for the first time. Damien expresses his surprise at discovering there is a house above where they ate. He shares that he had been sleeping outside and suddenly mentions that he doesn't have a dad either. Asta corrects Damien, telling him that he does have a dad, but Damien refuses to agree. Asta then asks Damien if he has a mom, to which Damien responds that he doesn't. Essentially, he believes that neither of them exist since they are not present in his life. Asta finally grasps the situation and tries to make sense of it. He asks Damien how long he has been alone, and Damien reveals that since he ran away from his family, he has slept 10 times. Asta wonders if Damien is being chased. Since Damien claims he has slept 10 times, Asta believes he has been away for 10 days. Just then, Damien mentions that he takes naps 2, sometimes even twice a day. However, the total number of naps he has taken is 10. With this in mind, Asta concludes that he has been away from his family for at least 3 to 4 days. Damien behaves like a regular kid, leading Asta to realize that madmen were innocent at some point. Since Damien is all by himself, Asta decides to act as his nanny, hoping to form a connection with the Blandor family. He believes this will definitely help him when he eventually faces off against the Declan family. However, Asta is still preoccupied with the guy who hit him 57 times. Before he lies down to sleep, Asta tells Damien not to disturb him because he has something he needs to do. Damien quickly realizes that Asta wants to practice his breathing techniques. In Asta's past life, he built his magic foundation on something fundamental, which led him to sneak into noble houses to steal spells. Although he nearly died during these attempts, he managed to acquire several spells, including the hardened body spells used by knights. He also acquired several other spells, but it was when he was on the brink of death that he truly encountered power. This time, he is determined to be stronger. The spell he wants to master is Declan's foundational art, the Heavenly Origin technique. This foundational art enables the manipulation of all attributes of mana. He once memorized it during his research, and now he is thrilled to finally put it to use. It is called the breathing technique, and the moment he activates it, Asta feels a powerful wave of energy surging through him, as if he is being burned by lava. Despite the intense pain, Asta is determined to endure it. He suddenly notices impurities being burned out of his body. The technique is exclusive to high-level nobles, forcing mana through his circuits to eliminate the impurities. Asta immerses himself in the process and soon finds himself submerged in a pool of mana. When he finally wakes up from the painful process, Damien has already fallen asleep. He is shocked to discover that there are no impurities left in his circuit. Furthermore, his mana has been completely purified, surpassing that of his past life. However, he understands that despite this improvement, it remains impossible for him to defeat Declan. Nonetheless, his chances have increased. Asta motivates himself with the fact that he is a troubleshooter who never gives up. Later, Asta helps Damien change his hair color to brown and alters his clothes to help maintain his identity. To top it all off, he gives him a cap to wear. Damien then asks Asta what their next plan is, and Asta replies that they are stepping out to cause chaos. Momentarily, Asta finds the guy who hit him 57 times. As soon as the guy spots him, he asks where Asta has been. However, before he can talk more trash, Asta delivers a punch to his gut. The blow sends a wave of agony to the guy's entire body, causing him to immediately pass out. Asta is proud of himself for finding the right place, but he isn't finished yet. He plans to hit them 123 times. The rest of the house soon discovers the commotion and steps out to see that their youngest is the cause of it all. Deep down, Asta is already imagining the wild things he wants to do to them. He unleashes his anger and begins to beat up the guys. He pours mana into his fist, making his punches much more painful. Damien stands behind, watching Asta unleash his fury and enjoying every moment of it. To make things worse for the group, Damien begins healing them so they can endure even more punishment from Asta. The first person he heals is the guy Asta has a beef with. The dude believes Damien is doing him a favor until Asta grabs him, reminding him of the number of hits he intends to deliver. Once he tires of beating them with his fists, Asta turns to using canes. He flogs the main dude so hard that his backside begins to ooze with severe heat, but Asta is still not finished with him. He calls on Damien to heal him so he can repeat the process. To the victim, he doesn't see kids, but a group of devilish maniacs intent on taking his precious life. After a long day of torment, Asta finally decides to stop. To top it all off, he thanks his victims for their help. He has used them as his punching bags, and he feels very fulfilled. Having completed over 100 hits per person, he is proud to have surpassed 1,000 in total. The leader of the victims politely asks Asta if they can leave, to which he agrees. However, the man subtly reminds Asta that he is in his house, implying that Asta should be the one to leave. Asta catches onto this and stares at him with such a terrifying aura that it forces the man and his comrades to retreat into a corner. Just then, Asta senses someone approaching them. He notices that this person is skilled, much like a troubleshooter. It suddenly dawns on him that the individual might be after Damien. Asta is surprised they were able to find him, despite his carefulness. He realizes he is in a precarious position, but he refuses to sit around and wait to be attacked. Having been a troubleshooter in his past life, he is no stranger to difficult situations, and this is one of them. He gathers all the mana he can and compresses it multiple times. With this energy, he creates a mana bullet and aims it directly at the person charging toward them. He fires the shot, but the man suddenly drops into a knee slide, dodging the bullet while screaming Damien's name and calling him master. The dude slides over to Damien, revealing that Damien knows who he is. It turns out he is a butler for the family, and his name is Alfredo. Alfredo holds Damien tightly, but the kid insists he wants to be left alone. Alfredo refuses, stating he must return Damien to the family. Meanwhile, Asta stands behind them, observing the strange scene unfold. He finally realizes that Damien has run away from his family. After the introductions are complete, Alfredo offers Asta the opportunity to follow them back to the estate, noting that Damien seems to have grown fond of him. Asta takes a moment to consider the offer. He knows the house belongs to a prestigious family, but he can't quite discern their true intentions. Nonetheless, he had intentions of forming a connection from the start, and since the family's territory is on the way to the city, he finds it very convenient. The Zenyan Academy is also nearby, and given that the Academy's library is top-notch, Asta plans to visit it to gather ideas for building his own library. After considering everything, Asta accepts the offer. Soon they arrive at the family's estate. Asta steps out of the carriage, realizing that this is his first official visit to the estate. Since it is already late, Alfredo suggests they get some rest. He instructs the maid, Lancy, to take care of the kids. Lancy looks at Damien with icy eyes, and Damien quickly realizes that he is in trouble. Later that night, Alfredo makes his way to the chambers of the matron, Gammo. Alfredo informs the woman that Damien was in the gray zone and that he has just brought him back. Gammo, being impulsive, unleashes an attack spell out of rage before realizing that her son is perfectly fine. She lets out a sigh of relief, and Alfredo does the same, fully aware that it would have been a death sentence for anyone who had harmed Damien. Gammo was once known as the Blood Witch, and her fury is nearly unstoppable. She then commends Alfredo for his hard work. Before Alfredo leaves, he mentions to Gammo that there is one more thing. He informs her that Damien's new friend, Asta, noticed his presence before he even revealed himself. In response to this, he had already prepared a counterattack. Alfredo reveals that Asta was wielding a mana bullet during their confrontation. Gammo was impressed upon hearing this, admitting that it's an incredible talent for someone from the gray zone. Because of this, Alfredo tells the matron that he has a favor to ask her. The next day, Asta wakes up to a request from Alfredo, who asks him to become his successor. Asta is shocked when he hears this, and Alfredo feels relieved that the dude was taken by surprise. Confident that Asta will seize the rare opportunity, Alfredo is stunned when Asta subtly refuses the offer. He thinks he must have gone deaf, unable to believe what he just heard. Even Damien is taken aback to see Asta reject the offer. Asta admits that the offer is significant, but he tells Alfredo that he prefers the way things are. Alfredo quickly realizes that Asta was born in the gray zone and learned magic through natural talent, which explains his overconfidence. In an attempt to undermine Asta's self-assurance, Alfredo warns him that the world is vast and filled with dangers he knows nothing about. Alfredo compares Asta to a goblin in a large canyon, but Asta corrects him, saying he feels more like a wyvern. Shocked by this response, Alfredo decides to show Asta what he means. He takes Asta to the butler training house, where the trainees are currently having their session. Alfredo is proud to show Asta such a grand spectacle. He tells Asta that the kids are all his age and have been recognized as the talent of House Blandor. Asta stares at the kids and admits that they have undergone precise training, which makes them seem more mature than their years. However, despite this, he is still not impressed with what he is seeing. Asta tells Alfredo that he can feel their aura, and Alfredo is pleased to hear this. He then asks Asta once more if he is ready to accept his proposal, assuring him that he will get to shine like the kids in front of him. However, Asta again refuses the offer, stating that he hates the light. Just then, one of the kids, Winster, raises his hand. Winster suggests that Asta is talentless, which is why he rejected Alfredo's offer. In addition to this, he believes that Asta can't truly grasp how great they are, and he wants to prove it to him. He essentially challenges Asta to a duel, and although Alfredo senses Winster's eagerness, he permits it. He asks Asta if he is ready for the duel. Asta understands the motivation behind the challenge, as all the trainees already view him as their rival. He knows that they likely see him as a lucky guy who just appeared out of nowhere, and now he's already being offered the chance to become the successor to the chief butler. Asta accepts the duel but asks Alfredo if he can choose his opponent. Alfredo tells him to go ahead. Asta then points to Winster, but he doesn't stop there. He points to 4 other trainees as well. Everyone is shocked when Asta reveals that he wants a 5v1 matchup. Winster can hardly believe his eyes, and Asta makes it clear that he is free to back off if he is scared. Alfredo laughs when he sees this and realizes that Asta possesses the charge that his successor should have. He then asks Asta if he is ready to take responsibility for his words, to which Asta replies yes. Alfredo tells Asta that he will give him a gift if he can last 1 minute in the duel. However, if he fails, he will have no choice but to become his successor. Asta senses the desperation in Alfredo's voice, but he is not afraid. Once they reach an agreement, Alfredo instructs them to step into the ring. The trainee instructor insists that the situation is too risky. Alfredo acknowledges the danger but emphasizes the importance of teaching Asta a lesson about humility. The instructor, concerned for Damien's guest, approaches Damien to express his worries. He urges Damien to call off the duel, but to his surprise, Damien is excited about the fight. He even expresses a desire to join in, but Lancy warns him that Gamma will scold him if he gets involved. Alfredo then urges the instructor to start the match and stop wasting time. The instructor realizes he has no choice, having done his best to prevent the duel. Noticing the instructor's mood, Lancy decides to leave the room. Before she goes, she advises Damien not to get involved. Damien smiles, assuring a lady that he won't disappoint her. The instructor approaches the kids to explain the rules, informing them that it will be a free-for-all match. He emphasizes that the duel will only end when one side surrenders, but also makes it clear that he can stop the duel at any time. Meanwhile, Winster glares at Asta with intense dislike, preparing to crush him and expose him as a fraud. Just then, the instructor starts the match, and Asta wastes no time landing a mana-imbued punch to Winster's gut. The blow sends Winster reeling in pain as he coughs up liquid. Before Winster can react, Asta has taken down the rest of the trainees, who are all rolling on the ground in severe pain. Yet Winster remains the only one still standing. Asta stares at him like a villain and declares that he is ready to give Winster some of the best experiences he can offer, all while rolling mana bullets in his hands. He tells Winster that the first lesson he has for him is to never underestimate the little guy. Winster is already terrified when he realizes that Asta is casually wielding mana bullets. Winster understands what it means to conjure a mana bullet. Asta continues with his lesson, stating that the second one is to stop judging people easily. He emphasizes this point while hitting Winster and his comrades with mana bullets. They all scream in pain as the bullets inflict intense suffering. For the third lesson, Asta tells Winster that the world is vast and bitter. He then moves closer to Winster and finishes him off with a punch. Asta smiles at the trainees, declaring that he will personally teach them the lessons he just mentioned. Winster screams in pain, calling Asta a lunatic. He insists that he is not using magic against them, but Asta counters that it is indeed magic. Asta continues his lesson by kicking Winster in the head, explaining that he is using physical magic. Everyone in the room is stunned as Asta effortlessly beats up the trainees, treating them like they are nothing. He drags them around as if they are his personal puppets. Alfredo is left speechless by the magic bullet he just witnessed from Asta. He wonders how many times the magic was compressed. Given the power of the bullets, Alfredo concludes that they must have been compressed at least 4 or 5 times. It suddenly dawns on him that if he had been hit by the mana bullets earlier, it could have caused him serious damage. He realizes that Asta has complete control over his innate mana, and on top of that, he is quite skilled at fighting. At the back, Damien is busy healing everyone so Asta can have more fun dealing with them. Suddenly, Lancy enters the room with Gammo. She immediately summons Alfredo, and when the instructor sees the matron is present, he lets out a sigh of relief, grateful that they are finally saved. Gammo asks Alfredo what is going on, and he admits that he was simply running a test. Gammo cannot believe that Alfredo considers what she is staring at a test. Asta is essentially trashing the trainees while Damien offers support from behind. Gammo then orders Alfredo to gather the trainees and instruct them to withdraw. Additionally, she tells Damien and Asta to head to their rooms. Just then, she approaches the instructor and informs him that he is fired, leaving him in shock. Later that night, Gammo tells Alfredo that he went too far, despite his pure intentions. Alfredo acknowledges his mistake and expresses his willingness to accept punishment. Gammo then asks Alfredo if Asta received help from Damien during the duel, to which Alfredo replies no. Alfredo remarks that Asta is exceptionally skilled at hitting people. He then tells Gammo that Asta has used the magic bullet once more, but this time he compressed it multiple times to enhance its power. Upon hearing this, Gammo recognizes that Asta has impressive control over his mana. Although she may not have witnessed it firsthand, she arrived just in time to see Asta effortlessly defeating 5 trainees at once. Gammo also understands that managing a magic bullet is challenging, even for a high-level mage. Gammo then asks Alfredo about the successor proposal, but he informs her that Asta rejected it without a second thought. Realizing the need to reevaluate the situation, Gammo instructs Alfredo to bring Asta to her. Shortly after, Asta meets with Gammo, but Damien is also present in the room, munching on cookies like a typical spoiled brat. Before Gammo says anything, she places a box on the table for Asta. Asta is surprised to see it, and Gammo reminds him that Alfredo promised him a gift. Asta is even more astonished to learn that the gift is being prepared by Gammo. She tells him to open the box, and when he does, he is shocked to find a high-grade item inside. Asta is surprised because, even in the Blandor family, only recruits in the top 5 mage divisions receive such a gift. Without a doubt, Asta suspects there is something more attached to this present. As if Gammo can read his mind, she tells him he is free to take the gift. Gammo explains that Asta helped her son in the gray zone, and this also serves as an apology for what happened earlier in the day. Asta is determined not to fall into any trap, so he asks Gammo if he will be required to join Blandor if he consumes the item. She assures him that he will not. He then inquires whether the item contains poison, but her answer is still the same. Asta is shocked to discover that there are no conditions attached to consuming the item. He thanks her for the gift, and then Gammo mentions that she has a proposal. The moment Asta hears this, he realizes he was right. Gamo reveals her plan to arrange Asta's admission to the academy so he can attend with Damien. Asta is confused by this, and Gamo explains that Damien was supposed to go to the academy the year before, but he refused, which is why it was postponed to this year. However, Gamo didn't expect her son to run away the way he did. She can already tell that Damien likes Asta, which is why she is asking him about it. Asta realizes that Gamo is doing her best to ensure that Damien stays at the academy. If she pushes him too hard, he will just run away again. Additionally, Asta views this as a rare opportunity for him. The academy will provide him with numerous connections, and he doesn't think that's a bad idea. He knows it's a good opportunity, but at the same time, he feels as though he is being put on a leash. He then decides to tell the lady that he will think about it. Gamo is fine with his decision and lets him know that she will be waiting for a reply. She then asks Asta why he rejected the offer to become Alfredo's successor. Sensing that Alfredo is eavesdropping, Asta decides to hurt his ego. He simply tells the lady that his knees are precious to him, implying that he doesn't like bowing to people. This directly impacted the butler, who was hiding and listening to the conversation at the door. When Asta returns to his room, he consumes the item and is impressed by the changes it brings to his body. His mana has significantly increased from just a 10% absorption, and his physique is transforming into that of a flameborn. Asta is impressed that absorbing the item doesn't cause any impurity in his body. He has already considered the academy and knows that enrolling will quickly provide him the opportunity to meet a sponsor. While there are many advantages to joining the academy, he can't shake the feeling that he might be walking into a trap. Deciding to clear his mind, Asta goes for a run. As he steps outside his room, he suddenly hears someone asking if he is Asta. Asta turns around to look at the guy, assessing his appearance, which features platinum blonde hair. Believing that Damien, as the direct descendant, must be a relative, Asta decides to lie, telling him that he is not the Asta he seeks. The guy is shocked to hear this, as the appearance of the person standing in front of him matches what he was told. Asta supports his lie by explaining that the hair on his head can change, implying that there is a lot that might be different about him. The dude then assumes he has the wrong person and starts to turn away, apologizing for the misunderstanding. At that moment, Alfredo rushes over and mistakenly mentions Asta's name at the wrong time. He is there to discuss the whole butler situation again, but when Alfredo mentions his name, it reveals his identity to the strange man who was already leaving. The man immediately turns around, claiming he was right because Asta has an unpleasant face. With no way to cover up the lie, Asta admits that he is indeed the Asta the man was looking for. This angers the guy, but when he sees that Alfredo is present, he decides to back off. However, he tells Asta to come to the Mage Hall later in the day, so he can beat him up and teach him some manners. Once the guy leaves, Alfredo asks Asta if something is wrong, but Asta replies that everything is fine. Deep down, Asta was already searching for someone to vent his anger on, and he saw the dude as the perfect test subject. Asta planned to head to the Mage's Hall later to confront him. He then asked Alfredo if it was possible for him to see Gamo at that moment. Asta was taken to Gamo's office, where she was shocked that he requested a meeting so early in the morning. She asked Asta if he had made up his mind regarding their previous conversation. He says yes. Surprisingly, he informs Gamo that he plans to enroll in the academy just as they offered. Gamo is taken aback by this news, but she also feels a sense of relief. She then tells Asta that they will prepare everything very soon. With that, Asta leaves the room and Alfredo enters. He asks Gamo about Asta, and she assures him that Asta has accepted the offer. Alfredo is glad to hear this and celebrates the win. They plan to cover Asta's fee for the first semester, but he knows that Asta will face difficulties paying his tuition for the next semester. Alfredo believes this will make Asta more anxious, as he is eager to learn more. Alfredo plans to step in and lend a helping hand. Gamo is compelled to call Alfredo to order, telling him that he is being too loud. Alfredo apologizes and heads to the kitchen as it's almost time for breakfast. Once he leaves, Gamo realizes why Alfredo is so happy. He understands that Alfredo has finally gotten the chance to make Asta his successor. However, Gamo also thinks it's a sloppy plan. Despite this, Alfredo appears very confident in the strategy, recalling that the former head butler used the same trick on. Asta then decides to head to the Mage Hall, where the jerk from earlier had told him to go. As he opens the door, he sees a mage with his face hidden beneath a hood, who asks him why he has come. Not knowing the name of the brat from before, Asta begins to stutter. Suddenly, the mage becomes lively, telling Asta that he has been waiting for him to arrive. He asks Asta to follow him and leads him to another room. He urges Asta to enter, reminding him to mind his head. As Asta steps inside, he is greeted by a flurry of notes flying around the room. it dawns on him why the mage had warned him to mind his head. Soon he encounters a man who introduces himself as Wenji von Blondor. Wenji asks Asta if he has come to see his little brother, but Asta is genuinely confused by the question. He wonders if the brat from earlier is actually his brother. However, there is one thing Asta knows about mages from his past life. They all share a common characteristic. They initially struggle with disheveled hair, but eventually they pull it out, stopping further growth. Asta has divided this process into 3 stages. The first stage involves the mages denying that their hair is falling out and wearing their robes to cover it. In the second stage, they simply give up and reveal their bald heads. Finally, the third stage is where they fully accept reality and shave their heads completely. However, the fourth stage is where they conduct research on making the impossible possible. They always strive to create magic that will make hair grow, but no one has ever succeeded in this endeavor. Despite this, none of these characteristics seem to apply to Wenji, who stands comfortably in front of him. Before anything else, Wenji apologizes for his younger brother's behavior. Asta then asks Wenji if he is working at an academy. Wenji reveals that he is currently serving as the vice dean, and then offers Asta a drink. Asta is impressed that someone like Wenji has already attained the position of vice dean at a prestigious academy. He believes Wenji must be quite skilled, as such a role cannot be secured solely based on family name. Wenji playfully teases Asta, noting that he is quite different. He then shares that he is aware of the encouragement he has received to enroll in Zinnian Academy, which is a significant opportunity. Wenji congratulates Asta, stating that this is a great opportunity for him to learn. He mentions that he is also a graduate of the academy, having come from the 145th class. Asta, however, is unimpressed, as he never asks for the details Wenji is eagerly sharing. Noticing Asta's reaction, Wenji quickly apologizes, claiming he was just excited, which is why he ended up saying unnecessary things. Wenji suggests they get to the main point, but first, he tells Asta that there is one thing he would like to confirm. Wenji asks Asta if he would be willing to risk his life for a friend. Asta is utterly confused by the question. Wenji reveals that this matter concerns the reputation of the Blandor family. He then reaches into a storage space and pulls out a book. Asta's face lights up in shock when he sees the book. Wenji informs him that he will be willing to give him the tome if Asta is prepared to risk his life. The book holds the secret of the Blandor family, the healing light. Meanwhile, Gammo tends to her garden, reflecting on Damien's move to the academy. She feels relieved that everything was handled without stress. She also considers Asta a good friend to Damien. She recognizes that Asta has a good nature, even though Alfredo mentions he can be a bit of a jerk at times. Gammo isn't concerned about this, as she believes every kid has a shameless side. In fact, she's glad that even after Asta learned about Damien's background, he didn't change his attitude toward him. Gammo understands that people like Asta are quite unique, which is why she wants him by her side, always. Nonetheless, Gammo understands a bit of truth. Asta is like a free bird who will not allow anyone to cage him. However, she plans to consider the many ways she can keep Asta close. Driven by her love for her son Damien, she is determined to do everything in her power to maintain that connection. Meanwhile, back in the Mage Hall, Asta wonders why Wenji is offering him the family's secret technique. He tries to assess the situation to determine if it is a trap. Meanwhile, Wenji attempts to read Asta's emotions, but he finds it impossible because Asta is revealing nothing. He compares Asta to someone wearing a mask, unable to reveal their true identity. Wenji advises Asta to think carefully before responding and not to be blinded by the reward before him. Asta then assures Wenji that he will provide his answer. Asta tells Wenji that he will fulfill his request if it is within his ability, but if not, he is not obligated to comply. Wenji responds by warning Asta that simply hearing his proposal could put his life in danger. Furthermore, if Asta hears the proposal and refuses, Wenji threatens that he might have to kill him. Unfazed, Asta calmly replies that Wenji is free to kill him since they are destined to live only once, even though this is Asta's second chance at life. After hearing this, Wenji unleashes his intimidating aura to frighten Asta, but Asta remains unshaken. When Wenji realizes that Asta doesn't scare easily, he smiles and tells him that he has passed the test. Wenji explains that he needs someone he can trust, but that person cannot come from within his family. Wenji starts by speaking a jumble of gibberish before finally revealing his true intentions. He informs Asta that his situation is not a power struggle within the family. While he claims the family is very close, it becomes clear that he is under close surveillance by the Declan family. Asta is taken aback by this revelation and asks Wenji why the Declan family is watching him. Given that Asta has already expressed indifference about his own life, Wenji decides to share his true dilemma. It turns out that he is researching the Declan family's origins of magic and may have made a breakthrough. Apparently, he has obtained the Declan family's exclusive heavenly origins magic. Upon hearing this, Asta becomes very concerned, realizing that he is sitting in front of a dead man, more or less. He then asks Wenji if he is researching to destroy it. This is when Wenji reveals that he has actually found a way to improve the Declan family's secret art and turn it into perfection itself. Asta hears this and immediately concludes that he is sitting in front of an extremely reckless person with no regard for his own life. Wenji insists that he couldn't resist the urge to pursue the research, which is why he went ahead with it. Asta views Wenji as a complete lunatic, but at the same time, he realizes that the timing aligns perfectly. In his past life, when Declan wiped out the Blandor family, Wenji was focused on his research regarding the new 10,000 circle. This is why Declan felt no hesitation in attacking the Blandor family. He recognized the potential of what the 10,000 circle could achieve. It begins to dawn on Wenji that Declan may have harnessed that power, which would explain his incredible strength. Wenji then asks Asta if he is available to assist, as he is eager to elevate his research to the next level. Asta then asks Wenji why he came to him for the mission. Wenji reveals that he couldn't report the research to his family because he suspects there is a mole somewhere, but he can't seem to identify them. Asta suggests it might be a secretary, but Wenji disagrees, stating that the issue is likely related to the acquisition route. He then shares that the moment he realized he had been discovered, he took some precautionary steps. Asta asks Wenji why he wouldn't simply side with Declan, as it seems like the better option, and they would definitely welcome him. Wenji explains that he has personal reasons for not wanting to join them. Since Asta is not tied to the Blandor family, Wenji views him as the perfect person to assist him. He then reveals that it is a joint research project, but he is currently unable to make any progress. Wenji assures Asta that he will reward him properly for his help. He asks Asta to deliver the thesis to Professor Perun at Xenion Academy and promises to give him the healing light spell as a reward. Sensing an opportunity, Asta decides to negotiate. He proposes a better deal. He wants the healing light spell as compensation, along with 1,000 circle once Wenji has completed it. Asta is all in, riding on the double or nothing boat. When Wenji hears this, he admits that Asta is truly a shameless jerk. Since the mission is critical, Wenji has no choice but to agree. He assures Asta that he will give him the spell once it is completed. However, Wenji makes it clear that he has one condition as well. He would like Asta to assist him before he finishes the entire task, and Asta confidently assures him that he has no problem with that. While collecting the thesis from Wenji, Asta playfully teases him, suggesting that he doesn't know how to. He reads, but then switches it up, letting Wenji know that he is just messing with him. Asta then asks Wenji if Professor Perun is someone he can trust. Wenji reveals that he and Perun were schoolmates at the academy and have always been rivals. They constantly tried to outdo each other in everything, but their rivalry ended when Wenji returned to the family. Asta can hardly believe he is going to meet another lunatic like Wenji at the academy. When Asta arrives at his room, he finds a stack of books from Wenji, along with a letter. In the letter, Wenji outlines the order in which Asta should study the books to effectively cultivate his knowledge. Without wasting any time, Asta begins to organize the books and acknowledges that Wenji is a genius. Asta begins writing down his list of book sponsors, placing Wenji at the top. He intends to include the Healing Light book in the tower once he finally builds it, ensuring everyone has the opportunity to read it. However, he knows he must discuss this with Damien later. Asta plans to use his friend's privilege to persuade Damien to help. He feels a sense of pride in his vision as he aims to create a space for people to learn magic. He considers his meeting with Wenji to be very crucial. Meanwhile, Wenji is pleased to have met Asta, as he appears to be a useful person in whom he has developed an interest. Furthermore, Wenji is impressed by Asta's lack of fear in the face of death. Although it was only a threat, Asta's calm demeanor intrigued Wenji even more. He can clearly see that Asta's eyes reflect the spirit of someone who does not fear death. Wenji is pleased to have found someone useful. Unlike the usual pigs he has been working with, he can sense that Asta is hiding many things, but he views this as a positive trait. To him, Asta embodies someone who shares the same dream. Shortly after, Asta gets ready for the academy. He packs his belongings and puts on his academy uniform. Nancy arrives at his room to pick him up and informs him that he will need to complete a simple document registration upon arriving at the academy. Lancey reveals that he and Damien will be exempt from the entrance examination. He compliments Damien on his outfit, noting that it suits him well. Asta, acting like a true gentleman, thanks Lancey for the compliment. As he reflects on the exemption that he and Damien received, Asta realizes it is a privilege typically granted to prestigious families. This special admission makes Asta glad that he received it as well. Asta arrives at the carriage to find Damien and his mother waiting for him. The lady advises the boys to stay safe at the academy, and Asta acknowledges her words. Gamo also tells Asta that she is praying for him to achieve the results he desires. Asta smiles and thanks her for the support. Deep down, Asta is determined to achieve his goals without a doubt, as the academy offers numerous opportunities that he is eager to seize. He is also excited about meeting his beloved classmates. On their way to the academy, Asta examines the light spell book that Wenji gave him and is impressed by its interpretations, which he finds to be straightforward and easy to understand. Each noble has their own way of interpreting the techniques, but Asta believes that Wenji's interpretation aligns best with Declan's celestial principle. Soon, they arrive at the academy, and Asta stays by the window to admire the renowned Zenian Academy. Lancy then informs them that they have reached the end of the carriage service. According to the teachings of the founding principle, all students, regardless of status, must walk on foot during admission. Lancy informs them that they have finally arrived at the point where they will part ways, wishing the kids a great time at the academy. After stepping out of the carriage, Damien grabs Asta and urges him to hurry to the entrance of the ceremony, explaining that Lancy warned him there might not be any seats left if they arrive late. Asta is taken aback, realizing that the entrance ceremony is not just some village theater with first-come, first-served seating. Just then, it dawned on him that it was Lancy who had said it. He quickly realizes that Lancy used those words as bait to ensure that Damien wouldn't hesitate. Asta decides to play along, even if just this once. They soon arrive at the hall where the ceremony is taking place, and Damien is amazed by the number of people present. Although half of the hall is empty, Damien still believes Lancy's claim that they wouldn't have gotten seats if they had arrived late. Asta cannot believe that Damien is still oblivious to the fact that he was being tricked. Asta pulls out their seat reservations to see where they are supposed to sit. Damien points to a spot in the hall and suggests they sit there, leaving Asta confused. He struggles to understand how Damien can be so excited to be at the academy when he was the one running away just moments before. Suddenly, Damien collides with another student, a towering figure named Exter. The giant looks down at Damien as if he were just a bug. Asta quickly comes to his friend's aid, asking if he is okay. Damien reassures Asta that he is fine and attributes the mishap to not paying attention to where he was going. Damien and Asta are about to leave when Exter stops them. It turns out that Damien has smeared saliva on his clothes. Asta is still trying to understand the situation when Damien rushes over to help the guy clean the saliva, only to add more to it. This infuriates Exter even more, and he throws a punch at Damien's face. However, Asta quickly steps in and blocks the punch before it can reach Damien. Asta tells the guy to stop his tantrum before he makes a mistake. Exter angrily asks Asta who he is, and Damien responds that Asta is his friend. Asta agrees, and it finally dawns on Exter why Asta helped Damien. However, Exter warns Asta that he is about to regret his decision. Asta already knows where everything is headed, but he doesn't mind. He realizes that Exter is ready to settle the fight with his fists, rather than words. This soon captures the attention of the other students in the hall. It turns out that Exter is a direct descendant of the Delambi family. The onlooking students begin placing bets on who will win the fight, with most of them believing that Exter will emerge victorious. On the other hand, another student wants to stop the trio from fighting each other before things get worse. He believes they can't fight properly with the entire room crowded. However, another student immediately creates a barrier around the trio, allowing them to fight to their heart's content. Most of the students begin cheering for Exter, expressing their support for him to win. Meanwhile, something is about to happen. Once they are inside the barrier, Exter introduces himself and demands that Asta do the same. Asta simply replies that he was not born of nobility like Exter and wants him to think of him as just a random guy passing through. Exter then tells Asta that he will allow him to take the first strike since he is a mage. Asta laughs at this and teases Exter, which provokes Exter to charge at him like a maniac. Asta reminds the guy that he is about to face two opponents. He swiftly dodges the punch aimed at him and delivers a powerful blow to the guy's face, sending him staggering backward. Exter can't believe he just got hit by an academy student, especially given the force behind the punch. He begins to question whether Asta is truly a magician. Suddenly, Exter realizes that Damien has cast a healing spell on him. He wonders why Damien is doing this, unaware that he is about to endure the most brutal experience of his life. Lost in his thoughts, he is caught off guard when Asta reaches him and delivers a powerful punch to his gut. Before he knows it, several blows rain down on his body, and it finally dawns on him what the two are doing. One of them beats him up while the other heals him, forcing him to admit that he has found himself up against some crazy dudes. Suddenly, Exter realizes that he might actually be scared. However, the other students watching begin to cheer him on. They tell him not to hold back, reminding him that he is the hope of warriors. With this motivation, Exter finally pulls himself together. He unleashes his fury, calling Asta a mere magician. In a fit of anger, he swings his arm, but Asta skillfully dodges the first attack. Asta commends Exter for trying, but Exter angrily screams at Asta not to underestimate him. Without holding back, Exter swings his right arm, catching Asta off guard. Asta is thrown backwards, and the students scream in joy, thrilled that Exter is finally in the fight. However, despite the excitement, Exter doesn't seem proud of himself. He knows he landed a hit on Asta, but the impact feels surprisingly light. Asta skillfully rotates his body and lands on his feet. Exter is stunned by this display, but he quickly sets aside his shock and rushes toward Asta once more. Asta turns around to see Damien still casting healing magic on Exter. Realizing that finishing him off will be difficult, Asta knows he must take him out with a single hit. To achieve this, he taps into a technique that he and his comrades developed in his past life. By harnessing the collision of magical particles, Asta can extract energy. Although the technique utilizes magic, it doesn't fit into the categories of traditional magic or martial arts. Instead, it is a purely technical application of magical properties. Once Asta finishes cooking his move, he allows Exter to get very close before unleashing it. The resulting shockwave nearly blinds the spectators and even shatters the barrier. Everyone is left questioning what they just witnessed from Asta. Suddenly, Exter crashes to the ground and passes out, leaving the crowd in disbelief that the mighty Exter has fallen from a single punch. Asta raises his hand like a true warrior, ready to celebrate his victory. The rest of the students begin to cheer him on, wondering if Asta is truly a magician given how he handled the fight. Damien is also thrilled about their victory, and Asta gives him a friendly pat on the head. Meanwhile, the guy from earlier watches from a distance, smiling as he observes Asta. Just then, one of the teachers arrives on the scene to try to calm the situation. He cannot believe that the students are already fighting on their very first day at school. He begins asking who the perpetrators are, but the students enjoyed the fight, and no one is willing to snitch. Meanwhile, Asta is already planning their escape from the vicinity. Damien ruins everything with his psychopathic behavior. He screams to get the teacher's attention, admitting that he and Asta were the ones who caused trouble. Asta closes his eyes in disappointment and frustration as the teacher approaches them. Meanwhile, the giant Exter lies unconscious on the floor. The two boys are then called to the teacher's office, where they are scolded for fighting. However, the teacher decides to let it slide since Damien confessed to the fight without hesitation. In addition, Exter didn't suffer too much injury after examining him. Afterward, the two head back to the hall, fortunate that the ceremony hasn't started yet. As they walk through the hall, everyone stares at them, amazed by their latest stunt. They can't believe that Asta, despite his frail appearance, was able to defeat a martial artist. While Asta maintains his aura, Damien waves at the students as if he were a proper celebrity. Asta cannot believe he has drawn unwanted attention to himself and wishes Damien would stop waving his hands like a fool. After searching through the hall, they finally locate their seats. Not long after, the headmaster, a short white-haired old man, climbs onto the stage to address the students. Minutes later, the headmaster continues addressing the students, showing no sign of weakness, which leaves Asta impressed. Meanwhile, Damien is fast asleep, drooling all over the place. Asta has to pull him up to prevent a mess from his saliva. Just as the headmaster is getting into his speech, someone approaches to inform him that something important has come up and requires his attention. He wants to ignore this, but when he hears what it is about, he has no choice but to end his speech and hand the podium over to someone else. Just then, a bright-haired lady steps up to the podium, and her scream sends shivers down everyone's spine. Even Damien, who had been deep asleep, wakes up from the woman's thunderous voice. The lady introduces herself as Jera and informs them that she will continue from where the headmaster left off. Jera suggests they begin with the freshman oath, calling forward the representative of the magic division, Delia Dene. Some students are shocked to hear this name, as they did not expect the Dene family to take the entrance exam. Some believe that her skills are inadequate, which is why she is forced to prove herself, while others defend her, arguing that her family would never have allowed her to take the exam if her abilities were lacking. Asta, however, knows the truth about Delia. The Dene family is actually the second most renowned house after the Declan family. Delia has grown up to become the future representative mage of the esteemed Dene family. Asta acknowledges her capabilities, noting that he has received help from her in the past. However, they really don't get along well, which is why many call them bad friends. Asta smiles upon hearing this and expresses his happiness that Delia joined the class that very year. Once Delia climbs the stage, Jera calls on the martial arts division representative Paul. With no other name announced, Asta believes that Paul is not from a noble house. Furthermore, Asta doubts that the extra guy comes from a prestigious family either. Once the two finish taking their oath, they begin returning to their seats. Jera then announces that she will introduce the professors who will be teaching the class and urges them to come forward one by one. As Delia walks down the stairs, she looks directly at Asta, shocking him because it seems like she is making eye contact with him. Suddenly, Delia misses her step and falls off the stairs, leading to an embarrassing moment. Just then, Professor Perun, who teaches the basic principles of Magology, appears on stage. Asta notices that he is quite different from Wenji, but he decides to hold off on making a conclusion for a little while longer. After the ceremony, Jera instructs the students to follow their attendants to their assigned dormitory. Meanwhile, Damien finally wakes up, and Asta seizes the opportunity to prank him by claiming that he has been expelled for sleeping during the event. Damien hears this and screams at the top of his lungs, without a care in the world. Asta almost regrets his decision to prank him as he heads to his dorm, not expecting Damien to scream so loudly. When Asta finally reaches his dorm room, he is impressed by how good-looking it is. In the corner of the room are living supplies to make things easier for the students. Just as Asta is putting his things in order, his roommate, Paul, enters the room. Asta is surprised to see Paul looking so cold, as if he doesn't care about anything. Paul then speaks, telling Asta that it would be best for them to live quietly since he is not interested in making friends. He assures Asta that he doesn't care about what Asta does or his business as long as it doesn't affect him. In fact, he would prefer if they could stop speaking after the introductions. Asta, who was never scared of anyone, engages in a stare-off contest with Paul. Asta remains silent, which triggers Paul, who demands to know why Asta isn't giving him an answer. Deep down, Asta is contemplating just how proficient Paul can be, as it is said he entered as the top student. Asta decides to test him and makes a fake charge toward him to gauge his reaction. Paul immediately reaches for his sword, and Asta notices that his stance is quite good. Additionally, the way Paul positions his sword indicates that he knows what he is doing. Just then, Asta hears Damien's voice calling him from outside. Asta smiles as if he hasn't just done anything, and tells Paul that he is free to do whatever he wants. As they both mind each other's business, Asta teases Paul, suggesting he might start singing past midnight. After riling Paul up and leaving him confused, Asta steps out of the room. He then encounters Damien, who eagerly asks him who his roommate is. Asta replies that he doesn't know, which shocks Damien. Deciding not to press the issue further, Damien suggests they tour the academy, eager to explore everything on their very first day. The academy is vast, which is why students are advised to familiarize themselves with the layout to avoid getting lost during their stay. Although this sounds stressful, Asta is ready for the challenge, as he has something on his mind. He wants to know just how many troubleshooters are in the academy. With this goal in mind, the two begin exploring the academy. They soon find a lake, and Damien expresses his disbelief, as he always does. Asta realizes that Lancey was stuck with Damien because he constantly acts like a baby. Tired of hearing him complain, Asta tells Damien to ask his family to create a lake for him, since their estate lacks one. Asta explains that all it takes is digging the ground and pouring in water. Damien is intrigued by the idea and excitedly reveals that he would tell his family to make the lake even bigger than the one he is currently staring at. As he thinks of a name for the lake, he comes up with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. They soon discover a cool-looking statue, and Asta encourages Damien to ask his family to make one for him as well. Asta continues to fill Damien's head with ideas, even suggesting that they create it in the form of a dragon, as the scales would be gorgeous. Back home, Lancey is sensing some really strange vibes, leaving her to wonder what might be wrong. After walking for quite some time, Asta suggests they head back to the dorms, and Damien agrees. While they were sightseeing, Asta counted 7 troubleshooters. He decides to include the troubleshooters he hasn't identified, bringing the total to 10. With his calculations, he concludes that Perun's laboratory is located in the second magic hall. He quickly pieces together that the troubleshooters are after Perun. Since Declan has already realized that Wengi has allies, they would likely have started suspecting Perun because he is nearby. Asta wonders why they aren't following Perun, but soon realizes that they have made their move just in time. Determined to find out how much the troubleshooters know, Asta decides to take matters into his own hands. Asta positions himself perfectly to overhear 2 troubleshooters conversing. Troubleshooter 1 informs Troubleshooter 2 that headquarters has issued an emergency directive instructing them to gather at the target's nest. Troubleshooter 2 inquires whether their target is the main or the sub, and Troubleshooter 1 clarifies that they are going after the sub. They plan to deliver their objective to the sub-target by midnight. Troubleshooter 2 deduces that since Wengi has made his move, Perun must be their target. However, the troubleshooter is concerned about the school professors, believing they are not a match for them. The troubleshooter explains that Declan himself won't be coming, but before 2 starts to panic, he reveals that the fire demon, Callahan, will be joining them. This news shocks 2, as Callahan is the vice leader of Declan's Mage Corps, the Red Jewel. This essentially means that their operation is secure, indicating that Declan is willing to do anything for the mission. However, it also puts the troubleshooters at risk, as they would sacrifice themselves to ensure the mission's success. Despite their concerns, the 2 have no choice but to fulfill their duties. They move away from their position to join the rest of the team, ensuring they have enough support in case it's needed. Unknown to them, Asta overheard everything they discussed, and he is surprised that Callahan, of all people, is also coming on the mission. Asta recalls that Callahan is not someone to be underestimated. Back when he was still a troubleshooter, Callahan was already in his prime. When the Declan family staked their survival on a battle against the Blandor family, Callahan remained loyal to the crumbling house, demonstrating his level of devotion. Though he is currently dangerous, having entered his prime after the war with the Blandor family. He carved his name into history as a war mage, wielding his deadly fire that is nearly unstoppable. With Callahan on his way, Asta realizes it is crucial to capture him. He recalls that Callahan's magic is one of Declan's flame arts. Despite the high risks involved, Asta believes the potential reward outweighs them. Asta is pleased with how things are going in his favor. However, an important fact remains. The thesis they are all searching for is with him, not Perun. As the troubleshooters continue their pursuit of Perun, Asta begins to question whether the thesis he possesses is actually fake. This realization also leads him to conclude that the thesis being delivered that very day is nothing but a counterfeit. Later in the dorm, Paul gets dressed, revealing that he is one of the troubleshooters. He thinks Asta is sleeping, but unbeknownst to him, the Asta he sees is merely a dummy. Meanwhile, Perun is in his study when he senses the presence of the troubleshooters encroaching on his territory. He wonders why they are so bold as to enter the academy. Just then, it dawns on him that the troubleshooter approaching is a mercenary, and surprisingly, it is Paul. He easily recognizes him through his aura and offers a piece of advice, telling him to refine his ether's technique next time. That is, if there will be a next time for him. Paul then hands an envelope to him, and Perun finally realizes that it was Wenji. He starts to wonder what kind of trick Wenji is playing, and considers the various types of tricks he might be using. Suddenly, the door explodes, and Callahan strolls into the office, leaving fear etched on Paul's face while Perun remains calm. Callahan notices Paul's terror, which confirms that Paul understands the extent of his power. He then turns to Perun, asking if he has heard of him as well, but Perun coldly replies that he has not. Finally, Perun rises from his chair and tells Callahan to get to the point. This infuriates Callahan, but before he loses his temper, he admits that this is the first time he has been treated poorly. Callahan then lays out his terms, starting with his demand for Paul to be dead. He turns to Perun and adds that he would essentially leave him with one arm and one eye. Callahan shoots a fireball at Perun, who counters with his ice power, creating a massive explosion that shakes the building. Perun then turns to Paul and tells him that he is responsible for his own life, as he views him more as a mercenary than a student at this moment. Paul has no problem with this and quickly draws his sword to defend himself. Perun realizes that the Declan troubleshooters must have cast a blackout spell, which explains why no alarm is sounding. This means Perun is essentially stuck with Paul. Meanwhile, Callahan notices the envelope on the table, recognizing it is exactly what he came for, since it was sent to Perun by the Trash Belander family. When Perun refuses to hand over the envelope, Callahan decides to take matters into his own hands. He unleashes a powerful flame spell that causes the ground to shake. Perun remains calm, ensuring his ice powers are active to counter whatever Callahan throws at him. Just then, the other troubleshooters begin to move in, prompting Perun to get serious. He unleashes a devastating strike that nearly crumbles the building. Meanwhile, Asta watches from afar and realizes that the situation is becoming increasingly serious. Excited to see some action after a while, Asta puts on his mask and declares that he is not Asta at the moment, but Troubleshooter 1. He clenches his fist in prayer to the moon, asking it to grant him the strength to be a good troubleshooter that day, despite not always being the most righteous. After his prayer, he leaps toward the battlefield, where the affected building is already caving in. Meanwhile, Callahan is having a blast inside the building. He is surprised that, despite everything he has done, Paul is still alive, and he commends him for it. Deep down, Paul knows he would have been dead meat if he weren't wearing the protective talisman that Wenji gave him. He didn't even realize it was a protective talisman, and he considers himself lucky to have it. Perun speaks to Paul in a cold tone, instructing him to get out of the way as he unleashes a powerful ice blast to rival Callahan's fire blast. Afterward, Perun pats Paul on the shoulder, acknowledging that he has done well so far, which means he can actually trust him. Perun then demonstrates one of his powerful abilities by infusing Paul's sword with ether, leaving Paul in shock. Perun asks Paul if he can continue blocking incoming attacks, and Paul replies that he will do so for as long as needed. He realizes they have already passed the point of retreat. If he can't hold out, he will surely die. Callahan is impressed by their unexpected partnership, noting that a mage and a guard are exactly what he needs to fight. Then, Callahan unleashes another fireball, and this time Paul's sword fails him. He gets smashed into the wall, and Perun realizes that with Paul out of the picture, he has no choice but to get serious. When the amount of mana present in nature is limited, and two authoritative beings issue orders simultaneously, a struggle for control ensues between them. Perun wants to test just how much damage Callahan can withstand. Since Perun is requesting a duel, Callahan is more than happy to oblige. The two unleash their power against each other, causing the building to suffer the most damage. It crumbles, and Paul loses his balance and falls. As he descends, all he can see are two monsters battling fiercely without holding anything back. Paul crashes to the floor, questioning why he joined the fight in the first place, realizing he is nowhere near their power level. Meanwhile, the troubleshooters watch from a distance, completely stunned by the level of destruction the two are causing. Without a second thought, they conclude that they will be crushed if they attempt to interfere. Just when they believe they are safe, Asta appears from behind and takes them out, sending them into a state of panic. After eliminating any troubleshooters that might obstruct him, Asta heads to the fight scene. His arrival captures the attention of the two combatants, leaving them uncertain about which side he is on. With blinding speed, Asta reaches Callahan and grabs him by the neck, declaring that he is going to die. Scared, Callahan frantically unleashes a fire blast, but this causes him to suffer a mana backlash. He coughs up blood, and to his surprise, Asta remains unhurt. In fact, Asta is already dashing toward him. At the same time, the troubleshooters are moving in. Callahan realizes he must suppress the mana backlash if he stands any chance of success. He quickly pulls out a potion and drinks it, all the while wondering where someone as strong as Asta could have come from. The troubleshooters attempt to take Asta down, but he effortlessly blocks their attack and retaliates with a powerful counterattack. Callahan watches in stunned disbelief as he realizes he is genuinely impressed by Asta's precision and extreme efficiency. Despite his admiration, anger quickly takes over, and he declares his intention to kill Asta. In a fit of rage, he conjures multiple magic circles to unleash an even more powerful fire blast. The intensity of the flames is so overwhelming that Callahan inadvertently fries his own allies, leaving Asta completely astonished. With the thick smoke lingering from his last attack, Callahan wonders if he managed to catch Asta. He knows some of his allies were affected by the blast, but he doesn't care. His focus is solely on completing the mission, indifferent to whoever may die in the process. After remaining on guard for a few seconds without seeing anything, he assumes Asta is dead. A smile spreads across his face as he believes he may have gone overboard for no reason. He realizes that he will gain the upper hand against Perun if he can join forces with the other troubleshooters. Suddenly, his blood runs cold when he hears Asta's voice in the distance, asking if he has done his best with his last attack. Asta explains that he knows the kind of person Callahan is, which is why he quickly figured out that Callahan would sacrifice some of his men if it meant getting rid of him as well. Standing above, Asta aims his magic circle at Callahan, declaring that he is about to die because of his actions. Asta unleashes his mono bullet, and with no way to dodge it, Callahan watches as the attack comes straight for him. The mono bullet strikes Callahan directly in the head, piercing through like a large caliber bullet. After successfully taking Callahan out, Asta admits that Callahan was quite impressive. Any other mage would have perished from the first surprise attack. He confesses that Callahan's strikes were as deadly as ever, but surprisingly, his final attack ended up working in Asta's favor. Asta realizes that he would have definitely lost if Callahan had teamed up with the troubleshooters to engage him in a war of attrition. Even though Asta is becoming deadlier, his mana reserve is still quite low, which is far from impressive. He approaches Callahan's body to search it and gets lucky, finding the grimoire he was looking for. It seems that most battle mages don't trust anyone, which is why they carry their grimoires with them. Although the spatial pouch has a built-in owner recognition spell, Asta isn't concerned. He believes he can find a way to undo the spell later. Just then, Perun arrives, and Asta points out that he is late to the party. Perun explains that he was taking care of the remaining little fries. He then asks Asta if he is one of those who are after him, but Asta urges him to think clearly, reminding him that he just killed one of Declan's men, which should clarify where he stands. Upon hearing this, Perun realizes that Wenji was the one who sent Asta, and he finally lets his guard down. However, he is puzzled as to why Paul approached him. He wonders if Wenji is splitting the research into two papers, which would explain the need for two envoys. Asta then suggests that the one with Paul might be a fake, believing that Wenji orchestrated this to lure Declan's men into the open. Just like a fisherman reeling in fish, Asta suggests that Wenji might be trying to tighten security in the region while also ensuring that Declan's influence is minimized. Deep down, Asta feels that something is off. Even though a blackout spell was used, the fight was still chaotic and the Imperial Knights should have arrived. This can only mean one thing. The Knights have been bribed by Declan as well. Perun then asks Asta if he is the courier. Asta responds by pulling out the thesis and handing it to him. After collecting it, Perun inquires whether Asta knows what is inside. Asta confidently replies that he is not a fool, so he knows. Perun stands cautiously, and Asta assures him that he doesn't mind fighting him. However, Asta warns Perun to think twice about his decision, as it will determine whether he lives or dies. Perun acknowledges that Asta makes a valid point and then asks if there is anything Asta wants in return. Asta is confused by this, so Perun explains that Wenji only trusts those who like him. Since Perun is similar to Wenji, he believes he must earn Asta's trust by offering something in return. Asta thinks for a moment before telling Perun what he wants. A book. This confuses Perun, so Asta explains his plan to build a grand tower. He continues by saying he intends to fill the tower with books that everyone can read. Asta then expresses his desire for a book written from his perspective on arcane science. Perun is shocked to hear this, but he assures Asta that he will get started on it. After their brief conversation, Asta says it's time for him to go, but Perun asks how they are supposed to stay in contact. Asta then produces a communication crystal and hands it to Perun, explaining that the two halves are linked. Therefore, if one breaks, the other shatters as well. He instructs Perun to break one shard to call him, and to break more than one if there is trouble. After explaining how the crystal works, Asta vanishes into thin air. Not long after this, the Imperial Knights arrived at the scene to evacuate the Academy students in case of a follow-up attack. During the chaos, Asta managed to blend in with the students and met up with Damien, who asked him where he had been. Asta replied that he was attending to something. Meanwhile, he was fairly certain that, due to the recent events, the Declan family would pull back a bit. As Damien pressed him for more information, Asta couldn't shake the thought of why his sigil had reacted during the battle. He felt power resonate through the barrier as he blocked Callahan's attack, a reaction that typically doesn't occur on normal days. However, Asta is grateful because it was the sigil that enabled him to withstand Callahan's counterattack. As Asta reflects on the events, it finally dawns on him that this is the rejection phenomenon, a technique often employed by mages to protect themselves from the harm of their own magic. Asta is so troubled and confused that he speaks out without realizing it. This catches Damien's attention, prompting him to ask what Asta meant by not getting it. Damien demands to know the secret Asta is hiding. Ignoring Damien, Asta continues to wonder why the sigil reacted at that particular moment and what could have triggered it. Ultimately, Asta concludes that he needs to conduct more research, believing he will find some clues in the Academy library. Asta is minding his own business when a student suddenly calls his name from behind, introducing himself as Chenbi. Asta doesn't take him seriously until Chenbi mentions that Asta is a pretty good fighter. Asta finds himself caught between the urge to confront Chenbi, knowing he has revealed his identity, and the option of just letting him be. Before Asta can make a decision, Chenbi says something that saves his life. He reveals that Asta's fight with the combat division during the entrance ceremony left a lasting impression on him. Asta finally realizes that he has earned respect from the students, despite thinking he had left a bad impression. He tries to be modest, telling Chenbi that the opponent he fought was lacking in ether, but things would be different if they faced off again. Chenbi scratches his head nervously, but continues to follow the two, expressing his desire to stay with Asta. He smiles, admitting that he hasn't gotten close to anyone yet, and finds it strange to join other groups. Even though Asta is not entirely comfortable with the situation, he tells Chenbi to do whatever he wants. Chenbi is relieved to hear this, as he had expected Asta to push him away. Without hesitation, Chenbi initiates a series of conversations with Asta, providing him with a sense of sanity after dealing with lunatics since his return to the past. In fact, Asta had almost forgotten what it feels like to be normal. To fully embrace his new life, Asta believes he must settle into the academy. On their first day of lectures, Damien is already complaining about how sleepy he feels. Momentarily, Chenbi arrives as well. He cannot believe they are required to attend class after all the chaos that unfolded the day before, and Asta agrees, saying it feels harsh. With what Asta has gathered, he realizes that Chenbi is not from a wealthy family, yet he doesn't seem timid at all. In fact, he comes across as quite cheerful. Just then, Chenbi mentions that their M3 homeroom teacher is Professor Jera. Asta feels confused, as he hasn't heard that name before. Chenbi clarifies that Jera is a big deal. She once single-handedly slaughtered a horde of trolls. Just then, Jera enters the room and Asta immediately remembers her from the entrance ceremony. Jera stands in front of the class and reintroduces herself. She tells them that the chaos that occurred at the school the day before has nothing to do with them, and they are all free to continue learning. Jera tells the students that, before anything else, they will be undergoing a mana assessment test. This test evaluates both the quantity and quality of their mana. Jera then asks them which aspect they think is the most important. One of the students, a girl named Argon, raises her hand to answer the question. She says there is no definite answer to the question, because if one already possesses a certain level of mana, she believes that mana matters more. Jera then demands to know her reasoning for this conclusion. She provides an example, stating that when facing a mage of equal power, the one with superior mana quality would naturally have the advantage. When Asta hears this, he realizes that the girl is essentially referring to the textbook answer. With his experience, Asta understands that the quality of mana affects the accuracy, stability, and power of spells. Having a large amount of mana is essentially useless if the mage cannot hit their target. Jera looks completely disappointed with the answer she received, and it shows on her face. She then demands to know about Argon's family, to which she replies that she is from the Baron Pelham's household. Jera looks absolutely disgusted, revealing that she already thought the same thing. This leaves Argon shattered, tears welling in her eyes. Jera then poses the question to the class once more, but no one is willing to suffer the same fate as Argon. Suddenly, she points to a student, Ipel, startling him. Nervously, he stands up, and since he doesn't know the answer, he suggests that mana quantity is the most important factor. Ipel adds that in large-scale battles, total mana might have a greater impact. Asta agrees to some extent, noting that there are instances where quantity can outweigh quality. Essentially, both factors are vital, but it depends on the variable at play. Like Argon, Jera is disappointed with the answer she received, and she treats Ipel the same way Argon was treated. Jera is determined not to give up until she gets a satisfactory answer, continuing to call on the students one after another. The class is already murmuring about how annoying she is, stressing them out on the first day of school. Meanwhile, Asta is pondering what answer might satisfy Jera's question. Just then, Jera states that she has already heard everything that needed to be said, admitting that they were all close to the answer. In fact, there was no correct answer from the start, and she wasn't looking for one. Jera then asks them if their answer was truly from their hearts or if they were simply trying to say what she wanted to hear. She reminds them that a mage must never lose their conviction, regardless of the time or place. Furthermore, they must not be swayed by temptation and must possess the strength to uphold their will until the very end. She then questions whether, based on the answer they provided, they can truly consider their mindset that of a true mage. Jera emphasizes the most important lesson. They must become true mages. With this message conveyed, she urges them to hold it close to their hearts. In the end, Asta reflects on her words and concludes that the lady has a rather unusual teaching style. When the time comes for the mana measurement test, the first person she calls is Argon. Jera surprises everyone when she announces that she will be the class representative. Jera acknowledges that her earlier answer was impressive, and since she is the representative, she will be the one to record the measurement. Asta is taken aback by this revelation and begins to understand how Jera teaches her students. Remaining true to himself, Asta is genuinely impressed. The students are astonished to see the equipment, which is known to be quite rare. Jera, aware that most of them haven't encountered one before, smiles mischievously and declares that it's time to discover their mana levels. The entire purpose of the test is to determine if there is a monster among them. Jera explains that using the device is quite simple. To demonstrate how it works to the entire class, she instructs Argon to place her hand on the crystal orb and channel her mana into it. Argon approaches the orb and follows the instructions, causing the device to light up brightly. This blows her mind, and Jera points to the main indicator among all the indicators present. She explains that the quality of mana ranges from 1 to 10, and Argon's level is 4, which makes her an impressive young lady. Apparently, last year's freshman averaged a score of 3 on the indicator. Argon blushes deeply upon hearing this, and thanks Jera for the compliment. Afterward, Jera says the next measurement is the amount of mana, and Argon is required to simply pour her mana into the device. For her mana quantity, she stops at 17. Surprisingly, Jera remarks that this is an impressive score, as the last freshman only reached 15. Jera commends her, noting that she seems to be a hard-working individual with an exceptional score. This immediately sets a high standard for the rest of the students, who begin to hope for good results as well. Meanwhile, Asta recognizes that Argon is on track to become quite impressive. Jera soon takes her leave, explaining that she has something she needs to attend to, but she instructs her assistant professor to continue with the measurements. The students begin stepping out one by one to assess their potential. With the measurements, they all gain insight into their weaknesses and areas for improvement. Just then, Shenbi approaches Asta, urging him to stand up so they can measure their mana levels. Asta agrees, but Damien is once again sound asleep like a sheep. Suddenly, a student named Furion steps up to measure her mana level, and her score astonishes everyone. Furion achieves a quality level of 6, while her quantity reaches an impressive 20. Asta is surprised to learn that Furion is from the same house as Dahlia, but their differing hair colors indicate that she belongs to a branch family. The assistant recognizes why her scores are so remarkable given her prestigious lineage. However, he also informs her that there is still some work to be done. Moments later, Damien finally wakes up from his sleep, completely confused about what is happening. Asta initially tells him to go back to sleep, but then changes his mind and explains that they are undergoing the mana measurement. Damien seems uninterested and asks why they are conducting the experiment in the first place. Asta admits he has no idea, but since it doesn't take anything away from them, they might as well check. During the class session, Damien gets excited and shouts that he will try measuring his mana too. Asta cannot believe that Damien is seriously rushing in, while others are already commenting on how young Damien looks. Asta has also gained popularity since he defeated Exter. Among the group, Chunbi is the only unfamiliar face. Asta feels frustrated that he has been labeled a student beater when it was actually Damien who was so enthusiastic about the whole situation. Damien reaches the stage, and the teacher encourages him to try out the device. After confirming what he needs to do, Damien touches the ball, and the moment the indicator takes the reading, the entire class is left in shock. No one can believe what is happening right in front of them, and even Furion nearly breaks her neck while staring at the board. Damien falls into the category of those labeled as monsters. He possesses a mana quality of level 9 and a mana quantity of 67. In the room, Asta is the only one who remains unfazed. He understands that everyone else freezes in the presence of greatness. While Asta recognizes Damien's genius, he never anticipated that he would completely shatter the high scores. As usual, Damien is oblivious to the significance of his achievement and begins to ask if his score is considered high. Asta finally understands how Damien became a monster. He believes that, had Damien chosen the right path, he could have been a better person and changed the world. This time, Asta is determined to nurture him and ensure he makes the right choices. The Blandor family is the only one capable of rivaling Declan, and Asta plans to help Damien transcend to a level he once thought impossible. The teacher urged Damien not to let the score go to his head, reminding him that he still needs to work hard. Damien assured him that he was aware of this. He then rushed over to Asta, asking if he had measured his score yet, but Asta replied that he had not. Damien encouraged him to measure it, knowing that the other students would already be waiting to compare Asta to him. Since he has no choice, he walks up to the ball and decides to keep things low-key to avoid drawing attention to himself. Asta touches the ball after adjusting the mana to what he wants, but he soon realizes that the ball is set so low, indicating that his small mana has caused something unexpected to happen. The system initially reads 10 for Asta, but then the machine suddenly shuts down, displaying an error message due to a threshold being crossed. Damien celebrates with excitement, but Asta quickly informs the teacher that they may need to rerun the test because the machine malfunctioned. Damien is the only one who knows that Asta is simply trying to be moderate. The teacher resets the machine, and this time Asta sets his mana so low that it registers only 3 for quality and 15 for quantity. The students immediately accept this, just as Asta intended. Asta feels relieved that he was able to pull it off. However, Damien is not pleased with the outcome and expresses his frustration with a curse word. In the first department of magic, Jera stands in her office, observing the reconstruction of the second mage hall. Moments later, her assistant teacher, Jorvi, arrives with the mana measurement records. Jera reviews the documents and discusses the scores that catch her attention, mentioning that Damien is going to. Suddenly, her gaze lands on Asta's score, and she realizes there was a retest due to an error message. The moment she sees this, she realizes that Asta is not an ordinary kid, and that she needs to keep an eye on him. Later, the trio is seen creating toys with magic, and Chenbi is amazed by how much mana Damien can exert effortlessly. Seeing this, Chenbi concludes that he is just a small fry in the grand scheme of things. Asta notices Chenbi's reaction and immediately understands how he feels, but he wishes Chenbi could face reality and move forward. After they finish playing, Damien admits that it's been fun and expresses his gladness about coming to the academy. Asta hears this and lets out a sigh of relief, grateful that Damien is adjusting well to life at the academy. Sometime later, Asta finally gains access to the spatial pocket he procured earlier. Due to his lack of magical sense, it took him a whole month to unlock it. During that time, he also absorbed the elixir he received from Blandor. In addition to this, he has acquired a considerable amount of knowledge at the academy as well. Now that he can open the spatial pocket, he immediately dives in. The first thing he sees is a potion. After that, he pulls out a cloak, which he thinks is useless to him. However, he also discovers a defensive artifact, which he considers a valuable find. In the end, he discovers one of Declan's secret grimoires, known as the Red Flame. This grimoire contains a lesser secret spell derived from the Blue Flame, which is used by Farin. It is said to be a powerful magic capable of burning through formidable forces. Realizing he can't learn it right away, he understands that mastering it will take time. Later, the students come together for the midterm performance evaluation. Asta is surprised by the large crowd gathered, and Chenbi explains that all the first years are present. He then shares a rumor with Asta. Their test might focus on the canyon breakthrough, as he overheard one of the staff members discussing it. Apparently, the midterm performance evaluation is divided into 3 parts. The first part is the trial corridor, a maze-like sewer where participants must reach the goal. The second test is the canyon breakthrough, where students race to the finish line. The third and final test is the simulator, where participants duel against either a person or a monster. Although Asta is well aware of the 3 tests, he remains unconcerned, knowing that all he needs to do is pass. However, he worries about Chenbi, who does not possess the same abilities as he or Damien. As the students continue to debate what the test will entail, a thunderous voice suddenly commands them to be quiet. It turns out to be Perron, who introduces himself to the students and informs them that he will oversee the performance evaluation. Before long, Perron reveals that their test will take place in the trial corridor. Chenbi nearly loses his composure upon hearing this, as the little plan he had in mind is already falling apart. Perun then instructs the students to line up for their classes while he explains the rules. He informs them that the trial corridor is a maze-like sewer and they must navigate through it to reach the final gate. Essentially, all the paths lead to the end, regardless of which one they choose. Chenbi smiles upon hearing this, convinced that the test will be a piece of cake. Just then, Perun points out that what he just mentioned is basic and would render the test meaningless. It turns out he has something else planned, and he unveils the golems he has prepared. Chenbi freaks out upon seeing the golems, unable to believe that they are now incorporating golems into a performance test. Perun acknowledges that while the golems may be slow and dull, they are still formidable at their current level. Their cores are exposed, and their durability has been adjusted, which should provide the students with an advantage. However, he cautions them that in a closed space, the golems can quickly close the gap. Observing the students' reactions, Perun feels a sense of disappointment, yet he remains convinced that some of them possess real potential. After carefully assessing them, he continues to evaluate their abilities. He believes that Damien is not among the top contenders because he appears quite dull. Perun continues to explain his rules, mentioning that the golems serve as gatekeepers, meaning it is up to the students to defeat them or find a way to move past them. He then reveals that each student will receive a test bracelet, which possesses a protective power similar to a force field. He informs them that the moment their force field breaks, they will be disqualified, and the golems will ignore them from that point on. After laying down the rules, Perun realizes the students are still unmotivated, so he decides to introduce an incentive. He tells them to impress him in any way they can, promising a personal reward for the winner, something they will definitely adore. As soon as Asta hears this, he becomes fired up, eager for whatever Perun is offering. In a quick revelation, it becomes clear that Rapidar is the largest library on the eastern continent, divided into 3 tiers: upper, middle, and lower. Due to Asta's status, he can only access the lower tier. However, when he went there in search of clues, he couldn't find any trace of what he was looking for. With this in mind, Asta realizes that he must gain access to the middle of the upper tier to find what he is looking for. However, these 2 tiers are restricted to royalty, archnobles, and distinguished houses. There is apparently another way to gain access, a recommendation from 3 or more professors. Therefore, Asta understands that he needs to impress Perun. Perun finishes laying out the rules and informs the students that they will have a short prep time to collect supplies from the professors to assist them during their test. The students immediately rush over to the assistants, clamoring for high-level items to help them succeed. However, most of their requests are denied, as they are not permitted to bring anything that would give them an unfair advantage. Amid the chaos of shouting and panicking about what to gather, Damien simply requests 20 vine seeds. The assistant professor is surprised that Damien is asking for vine seeds, given his lack of a primary element. However, Damien explains that not having a primary element means he can still use plant magic. Asta is taken aback by this revelation. He can't believe that the nonchalant Damien is also making preparations. Meanwhile, Asta is eager to see if Chenbi will finally break out of his shell. Once they finish their preparations, Perun informs them that he will assign starting locations and instructs everyone to check their names to find their designated starting points. Asta looks up his name and discovers that he has been assigned to starting point 3. He glances around and sees that the other 2 have been assigned to different starting points. In Asta's group, he notices 6 other guys he doesn't even know the names of. Moments later, an arrogant individual approaches him, flanked by 2 lackeys. He introduces himself as Daibei and mentions that he has a proposition for Asta, given his skill with the blade. Asta invites him to continue, and Daibei reveals his interest in purchasing the bracelets of students who get eliminated. He offers Asta 30 gold coins for each bracelet. He mentions that he, Asta, and his 2 friends are off the list, which means he is ready to pay 90 gold coins. When Asta hears this, he is surprised because 30 gold coins represent a peasant family's monthly income. Daibei expects Asta to jump at the offer, given his poor background. However, Daibei's primary goal is to protect himself, and Asta understands this. While it may appear as cowardice to some, it is essentially an art of making the best of what one has. Since they are rich, they might as well throw money at their problems. Just then, Asta asks Daibei why he calculated 90 gold. Daibei assumes that the amount is not enough for Asta and offers to add 5 gold coins, bringing the total to 105 gold coins. However, Asta points out that this still doesn't add up and suggests they redo the math. Considering there are 3 other guys on the team, Asta calculates that the correct amount should be 210 gold coins. The moment he speaks, the trio is left in shock and disbelief. Daibei is furious at the confidence radiating from Asta. In response, he decides to raise the price to 40 gold coins each, convinced that 35 is insufficient. Asta seizes this opportunity, pointing out that the total amount is now 240 gold coins. Daibei reacts angrily, unable to accept that Asta is trying to maximize his profit from the deal, even if it could cost him his life. Since he doesn't see a way forward with Asta, Daibei believes it would be better for them to back off. He tells Asta that the negotiations instructions are off, and just as he is about to leave, Asta calls him back, asking where he is going. Asta reminds Debay that he already owes him. This fully triggers Debay, who demands to know what Asta means by this. Asta uses a simple analogy to explain that there are 3 packs and 3 people loaded in a carriage. Even if the packs are removed, Asta tells Debay that he is still supposed to pay for the people in the carriage. With an evil smile and an arrogant expression, Asta demands that Debay pay up 120 gold coins, which amounts to 40 gold coins per member. Debay's lackeys quickly rush in to defend their master, telling Asta that he has no standing in Debay's presence. One of them, overly eager, approaches Asta and threatens to beat him up. However, he quickly realizes his mistake when he notices the difference in Asta's stance and voice. To avoid escalating the situation, Debay decides to pay the 120 gold coins. Just as he is about to hand over the money, Asta raises the price to 160 gold coins, explaining that his targets are nobles. Debay has no choice but to pay the money, but he assures Asta that he will suffer for it. When it's time for the students to enter the corridor, Perun reminds them that they will be eliminated if the bracelet's function is disabled. He adds that the field barrier activates against spells that directly strike the body or attacks imbued with mana. If the barrier is destroyed, the bracelet will remain in place, and the wearer will be forcibly transferred out of the testing grounds. With this assurance, Perun tells them they have nothing to worry about regarding injuries. Once all the instructions are laid out, Perun instructs his assistants to begin the test. Momentarily, the students are transported to the testing grounds, and the inner footage begins to broadcast. While examining the starting points, Perun notices that Damien and Dahlia share the same location. Suddenly, disaster strikes as the broadcast feed from starting point 3 freezes. Panic erupts among the assistants, who fear they overlooked something, but Perun urges them to remain calm, assuring them that he personally checked everything before they started. Unknown to them, a battle has erupted between Asta and Debay's lackeys. Just minutes earlier, Debay and his minions wasted no time launching an attack on Asta the moment they entered the testing grounds. Aware that being hit by magic results in instant disqualification, Asta quickly dashes away, skillfully dodging their initial strikes. Asta is so fast that Debay and his crew are left in shock as he reaches them like lightning. Before they can react, Asta begins striking them, not with the intent to kill, but to take them out of the game. He moves around like the Flash, delivering devastating blows that knock them down one by one. After putting them in their place, Asta still makes Debay pay, demanding 320 gold coins for his insolence. Additionally, Asta informs him that he will receive 1 silver coin for each hit. By the time Asta finishes with Debay, he resembles an inflated balloon. However, Asta ensures that Debay and his gang are disqualified, allowing him to easily collect their bracelets. Since he needs Perun's recommendation, Asta realizes he requires 2 more bracelets to claim his reward. He sits down to contemplate his next move, knowing he will also need another professor to vouch for him. He considers destroying the trial corridor, as only 4 pillars are holding up the ground. However, he quickly dismisses this idea, recognizing that it would only make him an enemy of the entire Eastern continent, ultimately leading to his demise. In the end, he realizes that he just has to keep moving until he finds something. Meanwhile, Damien has resorted to a desperate measure. He has used the vine seeds to take control of several golems, making life difficult for the students around him. Panic erupts as they wonder how Damien is managing to control golems with vine seeds. They attempt to take down the golems, but the vine seeds surrounding them render their spells nearly ineffective. As the chaos unfolds, Chenbi concludes that he has no reason to involve himself in any problem since his goal is to qualify. He makes a run for it, hoping to find a safe place to hide. Suddenly, the bracelet begins to sparkle, and Chenbi assumes he has been hit with magic without realizing it. Dejected, he sits down, waiting to be transferred out of the testing grounds, believing he has already been disqualified. Minutes later, he realizes that nothing is happening, leaving him completely confused about what is happening. A voice suddenly echoes through the grounds, bringing with it a sense of foreboding. The voice addresses the students, declaring that they have no demands. Their sole mission is to deliver consequences to those who have angered the great being. Just as Damien is about to confront one of the students, he pauses to listen to what the voice has to say. Just then, the voice declares its intention, revealing plans to kill all the students. At this moment, Perun and the assistants realize they are in trouble. Everything is practically gone offline and nothing is under their control. Seeing the assistants panic, Perun tells them to stop shaking and urges them to find the professors at once. He tells them that J-Ro should be their priority when fetching the professors. Immediately, the assistants run off to call the academy professors. Meanwhile, Perun is furious that someone or a group of people would dare to interfere with the academy's midterm evaluation. At the same time, all the golems in the corridor have fallen under the enemy's control. With the golems now in the wrong hands, they begin to move rapidly and become deadly. Asta is surprised to discover that the golems can precisely track him down. He quickly realizes that someone has tampered with their control. Noticing the large number of golems outside, Asta concludes that all the golems in storage have been released. Being the battle addict that he is, Asta decides he has no choice but to have fun with the golems, while also confronting the main culprit. Chenbi reflects on his dismal life when he suddenly hears someone running toward him. He turns around, and as the figure emerges from the shadows, he discovers it is Asta. Just as he is about to rush over for a hug, he realizes that Asta is being chased by a swarm of golems. Asta quickly catches up to Chenbi and urges him to run. Moments into the chase, Asta realizes that Chenbi lacks the stamina to outrun the golems and will be caught in no time. Asta then decides to switch to Plan B and instructs Chenbi to hand over his bracelet. Confused, Chenbi asks why, and Asta explains that the golems are targeting the bracelets because they are linked to the control system. This essentially makes it an alarm bell. With this explanation, Chenbi hands over his bracelet, but asks Asta what his plan is. Asta tells Chenbi that he will buy time for him to run and find Damien. Asta reminds Chenbi that he has a family, so it makes sense for him to be the one to survive. As Asta says this, Chenbi recalls his father's words, urging him to focus on his magic. Everyone in the family has encouraged Chenbi since he was young, finally summoning the courage to leave Asta behind. He urges him to make it out alive. As he runs away, Chenbi convinces himself that he has no choice but to stay alive, knowing his family deserves so much after all they have sacrificed to support him. Suddenly, he remembers his father calling him his proud son, and a moment of realization washes over him. He begins to question himself, wondering if he is truly someone worth being proud of. He recognizes that he has been indecisive, timid, and essentially nothing special. The fact that he even abandoned his friend serves as the reality check he needed. With this insight, he resolves not to add any more guilt to what he already carries. Chenbi turns around with determination, resolved not to give up. He decides to use the best magic he is capable of, a spell his teacher left for him. As he prepares the incantation, he prays that it works. The spell is known as the Spear of Earth, and it has a nice ring to it. The spell is designed to pierce anything, resembling a cavalry lance. While Asta is still battling the golems, he hears Chenbi calling out to him. He turns around to see Chenbi, bleeding from the nose as he prepares the powerful spell. Thanks to the late warning, Asta manages to dodge the destructive spell that obliterates everything in its path. When the dust settles, the spell has left a long crater in the ground, and due to its immense power, Chenbi starts coughing up blood. He crashes to the ground, but Asta catches him just before he hits. Exhausted, Chenbi reflects on how his master named the spell, describing its grandeur. However, Asta disagrees, asserting that it is the caster who ultimately proves the spell's true power. Asta states that the caster's usage of the spell determines everything. Just then, Chenbi begins to act as if he is about to die, prompting Asta to force a potion down his throat, assuring him that he will be fine. Before long, Chenbi regains his strength, leaving him feeling dazzled. Meanwhile, Asta contemplates what he should do with Chenbi, realizing he can't simply drag him along. Asta takes a moment to track the flow of mana in the surroundings. Once he identifies a safe path, he instructs Chenbi on where to go to find the other students. Chenbi then asks Asta what his plans are, and Asta replies that he has business to attend to. Essentially, Asta has traced the negative mana to the control room, and he is eager to investigate it. Asta then makes his way toward the control room, and as he gets closer, he recalls a familiar feeling. He quickly realizes that it is not Declan he is sensing. After racking his brain for a few minutes, he understands that he is confronting the demonic realm. Memories flood back to him as he distinctly remembers the demonic energy emanating from that realm. Asta's expression quickly shifts to his psycho personality as he recalls the peculiar individual, Frizen, who was behind it all. Meanwhile, inside the control room, Frizen is ecstatic that his little experiment is working. The demonic beasts have already manifested, and everything is functioning as it should. Essentially, everything has gone according to plan, thanks to the ancient artifact he is wearing on his hands. Thanks to the spatial severing function of the artifact, Frizen was able to access the demon realm without any casualties and even seize complete control of the control room. As Frizen celebrates his success, his counterpart standing behind him questions whether he really went ahead with something he wasn't sure about. Frizen responds by explaining that simply by creating the demonic energy, he has fulfilled the contract between them. The dude finally emerges from the shadows, his mouth covered by a mask. He informs Frizen that he is free to do whatever he wishes as long as it serves his interests. Essentially, all he desires is for a certain professor to be disgraced. Frizen bows his head to the dude, addressing him as the Great Hound of House Weimar. The Hound responds, warning Frizen not to speak his family's name with such a disrespectful mouth. Deep down, Frizen is furious that he has to bow to someone like the Hound, knowing that his family is merely a vassal family under Declan. Essentially, Frizen is is enduring this humiliation so that Weimar will provide him a space for his experiments. Because of this, he resolves to withstand whatever dishonor the Hound throws his way. Additionally, he and his group have successfully formed a forbidden magic sect called Salvatium. Just then, the Hound asks Friesen how long he needs to take total control of the core, as a student is approaching. Instead of feeling scared, Friesen is excited that he has finally gotten his hands on his first test subject. He is eager to see what will happen when someone is exposed to a high concentration of demonic energy. Common knowledge suggests that they are supposed to die, but Friesen claims the ancient texts say something different. It appears that the outcome works differently for those with mana or aether. Ultimately, this creates a human beast. Meanwhile, Asta finds himself trapped in the middle. He can't go back because golems block his path, and in front of him are demonic beasts. Faced with this dilemma, Asta decides to move forward. Friesen continues to smile until he suddenly senses something unusual about Asta. Asta smirks and tells Friesen that he is coming for him. Friesen's smile fades instantly as the Hound asks him if he has seen Asta before. Friesen replies that he hasn't and demands to know who the Hound is. Shaking with confusion, he wonders how Asta knows his name. Suddenly, he spots Asta pulling out the bracelets he had collected. With blinding speed, Asta dashes toward the demonic beasts and slaps the bracelets onto their bodies. This situation essentially sets the demonic beasts against the golems, creating an easy opportunity for them to annihilate each other, while Asta remains inactive. Friesen grips his head in frustration, screaming as he watches his creatures tear each other apart. However, he soon realizes he has a bigger problem when he sees Asta dashing through the barrier toward the control room. Before the Hound can even react, Asta reaches the room and tells Friesen that he has wanted to see him for so long. Meanwhile, Chenbi and Damien reunite, and Chenbi nearly loses control when he sees what Damien has done to the golems. Other students are with Damien, and Dahlia asks Chenbi how he managed to join them. It suddenly dawns on Chenbi that they need to discard the bracelets because the golems are tracking them. He shares this information with the students, but they don't believe him. Instead, they conclude that he is there to steal their bracelets. Chenbi is shocked to hear this and reminds the others that, given the current situation, no one really cares about some damn bracelets. He explains that the bracelets are connected to the control room, which is why they function like a bell. One of them then asks Chenbi if he was the one who figured this out, but he replies that it was Asta. As soon as he says this, the girl makes fun of him. He tells Chenbi that someone like Asta managed to trick him into throwing away his bracelet. The guy believes that Chenbi is afraid of failing alone, which is why he suggests they get rid of their bracelets too. He continues to trash talk Asta, but this doesn't sit well with Chenbi, who knows what Asta accomplished. Before Chenbi can respond, Damien's voice draws their attention as he begins to recount the first time he met Asta. He explains that their first meeting defined their relationship, which is why he trusts them. With that, Damien removes the bracelet and tosses it onto the floor, telling the others they are free to take it. He then calls for Chenbi, stating that it is time to go. Chenbi is completely stunned by Damien's actions, prompting him to question what he truly knows about him. Meanwhile, in the control room, Asta tells Friesen how eager he has been to kill him. Friesen remains confused as he doesn't even know who Asta is. He turns to the Hound, reminding him that he is supposed to protect him. The Hound then asks Friesen if he is really sure he doesn't know who Asta is. Friesen confirms that he has no ties to Asta, prompting the Hound to finally decide to step in as they are already under a contract. The Hound unveils his terrifying weapon, a chain sword, and tells Asta that he is going to kill him without a trace. It turns out that Asta knows the Hound through the Weimar family, a prestigious lineage recognized for their piercing power, akin to that of an archer. However, they chose to raise one of their children separately, and that child is the Hound. The Hound behaves like a true hunting dog on the front lines of a hunt. At that moment, Asta questions the Hound about why he is associating with someone like Friesen. The Hound is taken aback when he hears this family's name from Asta's lips, prompting him to ask if Asta knows who they are. Ignoring the Hound's question, Asta repeats his inquiry. At this moment, the Hound suspects that the fear of death has driven Asta to madness. He demands to know what Asta intends to do with the information, but Asta persists in asking the same question. Agitated, the Hound angrily throws his weapon at Asta, who dodges it and continues with his question. As Asta moves closer, the Hound believes he can reach him before he gets too near. He plans to use the retrieval spell on his weapon to catch Asta off guard, but to his utmost surprise, Asta catches the weapon just as it is about to reach him. Now, face to face with the Hound, Asta tells him that he has raised dogs before, and they tend to get agitated when a sound is repeated. The Hound is furious when he hears this, unable to believe that Asta is comparing him to a dog. Asta, however, makes it clear that he is simply stating the truth. Before the Hound realizes what is happening, Asta has struck him with his own weapon. Fear grips Friesen as he witnesses this, and he screams at the Hound, reminding him that he cannot lose to some unknown brat. Yet, the Hound is already under Asta's control. Before he can make any more moves, Asta delivers a body-shattering punch that finishes him off, leaving Friesen in shock. Once he is done with the hound, Asta turns to Friesen to taunt him, asking if he is still hiding behind someone else, just like he usually does. Friesen, furious, whips out a demonic device, but before he can activate it, Asta swiftly relieves him of his hand. Friesen screams in pain as blood gushes from his severed hand. At that moment, he realizes he is done for and starts shouting at Asta to stay away. Friesen then resorts to threats, warning Asta that he won't be able to stop the demonic realm if he kills him. He reminds Asta that his comrades will die in the demonic realm if it continues. But Asta's shocking reply reveals his resolve. He is willing to wait for the demonic realm to consume everyone. Asta urges Friesen to enjoy the show because he is next, and it is at this moment that Friesen realizes he has encountered a psycho. He cannot believe that Asta is indifferent to the fact that he is staring at the demonic realm. In fact, Asta seems willing to let his friends die, prompting Friesen to question whether Asta is even human at all. Friesen reminds Asta of his warning that everyone will die if he doesn't stop the demon realm, but Asta stands firm, insisting he doesn't care. Friesen demands to know why, and in response, Asta dashes toward him, declaring that he doesn't care because he understands that the solution is quite simple. At that moment, Asta grabs Friesen's right hand and removes the artifact. He then tells Friesen that he is not the only one who knows how the artifact works and how to use it. Asta puts on the artifact. He places his hand on the core, successfully dislodging the demon realm. Friesen is left in shock as he witnesses this, and Asta assures him that he will never forget him. Asta reveals that Declan had framed Friesen for numerous crimes before executing him. This was essentially the reason Asta began pursuing Friesen in the first place. Asta narrates the extent of his pursuit of Friesen, revealing that he nearly lost his mind in the process. Despite being the best at tracking, Asta struggled to locate Friesen, who proved to be an exceptional runner, darting across the entire planet. He reflects on how he searched everywhere, his hands stained with blood from the effort. After an exhausting chase, Asta finally tracked Friesen to the demonic realm. Asta didn't hesitate as he entered the demonic realm. Monsters attacked him from all sides, and the demonic energy eroded both his body and mind. Despite his efforts, he still couldn't find Friesen, and ultimately gave up. Crawling out of the demonic realm, he was met by a troubleshooter who had been waiting for him. The troubleshooter mentioned he had news, but was too scared to enter the demonic realm to share it. This was why he had stayed outside until Asta emerged. In the end, the news revealed that Friesen was dead. Apparently, Declan had captured him and extracted every last detail about forbidden magic in the artifact. Asta reflects on how empty he felt, leading him to sit in front of the demonic realm for days, simply staring at the sky. After hearing Asta's story, Friesen responds that he has no idea what Asta is talking about because he is just an attendant. Asta disregards his words as he realizes he is bleeding too much. Asta quickly opens a bottle of potion and forces it down Friesen's throat, insisting that he can't die yet because he needs to hear the end of the story. Deep down, Friesen searches for an escape route, realizing that Asta has just given him a fighting chance. As Asta continues the story, he describes how he saw a wyvern in the sky, and it appeared to be free. It was at this moment that Asta realized he had become an empty person, merely venting his emotions. As a result, he decided to erase the idea of revenge from his mind. However, fate had other plans, and he soon encountered Friesen. While Friesen was still devising his escape plan, Asta charged at him and slammed his head into the ground. Asta appeared absolutely menacing as he informed Friesen that he had researched everything about the demonic realm and Friesen's experiments in preparation for their inevitable confrontation. Asta informs Friesen that he has documented the deaths of his comrades, and because of this, he plans to take his time recreating every bit of pain in Friesen's body. Tears and sweat stream down Friesen's face as he grimly realizes that Asta will take pleasure in what he is about to inflict on him. 2 hours later, Jera finally gains access to the testing ground and screams at the attendants to find the students so they can save them. She is furious that an ancient magic took her 2 hours to break, yet she is not ready to lose any of her students. Just then, one of the assistants comes running to her, excitedly revealing that the system's core has been restored to normal and all spells have been removed. Jera then instructs the assistants to prioritize rescuing the students over catching the intruder. In addition, she doesn't want any announcements, as they have no idea how the intruder will react. Soon afterward, all the students are accounted for, leaving Jera utterly confused. She can't believe they were under attack for over 2 hours, and that none of the students died in the process. Just then, Haroon reaches out to Jera, informing her that he has gained access to the internal control room. He then reveals what he witnessed in the control room, and Jera is horrified to see 2 mangled bodies lying there. She is left wondering who could have committed such a brutal killing when suddenly, she remembers Asta's profile that she saw the other day. Jera turns around and locks eyes with Asta, instantly realizing that Asta has something to hide. Moments later, the headmaster arrives, stating that he came as fast as he could. Jera is surprised that the headmaster made it all the way from the eastern outskirts of the continent in such a short time. Meanwhile, the headmaster is pleased to see that Jera has wrapped things up nicely. At the same time, the headmaster has taken an interest in the report that Jera sent him, which claims that Asta was the one who dealt with the intruders in such a brutal manner. Essentially, every mage has what is known as a heart demon, which appears without warning. Most of the time, this heart demon brings about disastrous outcomes. However, because Asta always followed orders in his past life as a troubleshooter, he did not possess one. His comrade's death at the hands of forbidden magic had truly ignited his fury, yet he buried that rage deep within. He believed he had it under control until he encountered Friesen in the trial corridor, which unleashed all the emotions he had been suppressing. Asta felt as if he were carrying a bomb in his chest, ready to explode at any moment. Now, a week has passed since the incident. Asta believes this is the perfect opportunity for him to begin absorbing the Crimson Fire's secret tome. In his past life, he mastered a non-attribute secret art designed for troubleshooters. However, this will be his first experience learning an elemental secret art like Crimson Fire. That's why he has diligently read the initial stages repeatedly, while also reviewing the ending to ensure everything aligns correctly. Even though the primary mana circuits are similar to those used in the Heavenly Origin technique, simply circulating mana through the Crimson Fire's circuits only produces fire-respected mana. This means that the form of the mental image must be carefully maintained. At that moment, Asta activates the tome, and he begins to absorb the mana, igniting a flame in his heart that burns through his hands. After he finishes manifesting the spell, he moves on to compressing it. He soon realizes that the toll it takes on his body is much greater than that of his usual non-attribute mana. Ultimately, he is on the verge of successfully absorbing some of it, and Asta believes he is now one step closer to Farron. He feels a sense of accomplishment for finally adding the fire attribute to the basic art. Just after he finishes and contemplates his next steps, Asta senses a powerful presence outside the building. He realizes someone is trying to call him out. Without hesitation, he steps outside, and to his surprise, he finds the old dwarf, the headmaster, waiting for him. The headmaster explains that he finally understands why Jera was suspicious. Asta had handled the fire mana with remarkable skill. He admits that Asta is truly exceptional, and Asta casually responds by calling him principal. The old man suggests that Asta call him headmaster instead. Suddenly, the headmaster releases a massive amount of aura from his body, leaving Asta questioning what is happening. Despite being a former troubleshooter with no business in the realm of fear, he manages to stand his ground. The headmaster then speaks, asserting that he is the highest authority in the academy and that he deserves a measure of respect and proper greetings. Asta immediately bows his head to the headmaster, greeting him loudly. The headmaster urges him to lower his voice, explaining that while Asta is free to shout as much as he wants, no one can hear him because he has blocked out the surrounding sound. Asta is surprised and impressed by the old man's intuition. He had been trying to get people's attention, but the headmaster had already anticipated his need. Asta then asks the headmaster why he came, and the headmaster replies that he has questions. However, his responses could be the tipping point. As the headmaster sits down, the pressure is so intense that Asta is forced to his knees. The headmaster tells Asta that Jera mentioned he is hiding something, and he is eager to learn what it is. Asta is completely astonished by the headmaster's immense power, struggling to reconcile this with the same man who once fumbled a speech in the Grand Hall. He reluctantly acknowledges that the headmaster is a formidable force in his own right. However, Asta believes that the headmaster cannot be compared to Declan. Seizing this moment of clarity, Asta finds a way to navigate through the headmaster's monoflow and successfully cuts it off. Once he breaks free from the headmaster's influence, Asta informs the headmaster that he knows he came because of the events that took place in the trial corridor. The headmaster is taken aback by Asta's honesty and lack of attempts to conceal the truth. Asta explains that it isn't worth hiding. While he would have preferred to keep it a secret, the significance of the events makes it impossible to do so. With that, Asta asks the headmaster if there is anything he would like to know. Asta is completely baffled by the headmaster's behavior. One moment he is serious, and the next he is smiling. The headmaster then explains that he will ask questions, and Asta is free to answer the ones he can, as this approach is preferable to beating him up. With that understanding, Asta sits down to listen to what the headmaster has to say. However, before the headmaster begins his questioning, Asta shares a parable. He discusses a wyvern being hunted, which ultimately captures the headmaster's attention. This prompts the headmaster to compare their situation to a battlefield, warning Asta to treat him as his senior or face the consequences. Asta obediently bows to the headmaster, addressing him as senior, and the headmaster praises his compliance. Once they are on the same page, the headmaster unleashes a furious aura and asks Asta why he left the intruders in such a brutal state. Asta is surprised to realize that the headmaster's anger is directed at the intruders and not at him. He then asks the headmaster what he plans to do about the situation. The headmaster replies that he intends to crush the intruders and their sponsors. Additionally, he assures Asta that the emperor will grant his approval for the entire plan. He also plans to gather his old comrades, and when Asta hears this, he realizes he is referring to the war mages or knights who once fought alongside him. With this understanding, Asta is confident that they are not ordinary forces. He then replies that everything traces back to Declan, but the headmaster sees through Asta's deception. Asta is impressed by the headmaster's sharpness, as it would have been convenient for him to pin everything on Declan. Asta finally comes clean, revealing that the culprit is Weimar. The headmaster demands to know if the two are from the Weimar family, but Asta clarifies that one of them is Frizen, a Magitech engineer. The headmaster then asks if Asta has any material evidence to support this claim. Asta teases him, questioning whether he is supposed to spoon-feed him every detail. The headmaster is taken aback by Asta's insolence. He then asks Asta how he knows about Weimar and Frizen. Asta calmly explains everything to the headmaster. In the end, he answers as best as he can without mentioning his regression or the grimoire. Despite this, Asta can sense just how angry the headmaster is. Once the headmaster finishes venting, he shares his impression that Asta wants to build a tower. He then offers to fill the entire shelves of the first floor for him. Asta is pleased to hear this and thanks the headmaster for his cooperation. The headmaster then informs Asta that he is willing to give him the admission ticket if Asta agrees to do a favor for him. As soon as Asta hears this, he realizes he might be getting himself into a difficult situation. Noticing Asta's concern, the headmaster encourages him to cheer up, assuring him that the favor can wait until later. He then jumps onto the artifact that constructs the demonic realm. The headmaster acknowledges that it might be dangerous, but he also believes the artifact could be beneficial for the library Asta wants to build, thanks to its spatial severance ability. Asta cannot dispute this, as the artifact is undeniably useful. Given that the academy professors have struggled to break through, Asta is convinced it would be effective in defending the tower. However, he faces a challenge. He lacks extensive knowledge of Magitech. The headmaster then tells Asta to see Jaira about this matter. He assures Asta that he will put in a good word for him because Jaira is someone he can trust. However, the headmaster is fairly certain that Jaira will be interested in Asta's identity, unlike Asta, who doesn't really care. To prepare for this, the headmaster concocts a story just in case. The following day, Asta is studying when Damien and Chenbi arrive. He is shocked to see how much weight the two have gained in just 1 week. Asta is surprised to notice that the students have grown closer to Chenbi and Damien. Chenbi tells Asta that everyone has been grateful to them for the bracelet information he provided during the trial corridor. In fact, they were even given elixirs as gifts, and their parents contributed as well. Chenbi thanks Asta for his help, but Asta replies that there's no need for gratitude since Chenbi was able to convince the students on his own. Asta tells Chenbi that he was the one who created the change himself. He then asks Chenbi what Damien did in the trial corridor. Chenbi replies that Damien was able to bind a golem with plant-type magic and put it to work, effectively controlling the golems, which he named Cerberus 1 through 3. Just as Chenbi sits down to have a proper conversation with Asta, Jaira arrives, instructing Asta to come see her in her office immediately. When Asta arrives at the office, Jaira asks if he knows why she summoned him. Asta replies that he is fairly certain she didn't call him for counseling. Jaira confirms this, explaining that she has heard the story. Essentially, the headmaster informed her that Asta is the descendant of an ancient war mage. She also mentions that Weimar is behind the incident, to which Asta agrees, adding that they are all trash, including Declan. Asta is impressed that the headmaster has already set everything up. Instead of drawing attention to Blandor under a disguised identity, the headmaster suggested they go with a descendant of an old war mage who wanders the continent while concealing his identity. This war mage has a grudge against Declan and Weimar, which Asta agrees with since it aligns with his main goal. Jaira then points out that the whole plan has loopholes, but she decides not to probe further. Since the headmaster already spoke to her about it, Jaira assures Asta that she will cover everything up because she sees that Asta is not a threat to the academy. Suddenly, Asta lightens the mood by staring at Jaira's bouncy melons and then tells her that she is way older than him. Jaira initially gets angry but eventually finds a way to calm herself. She believes Asta is simply trying to compliment her, and she accepts it calmly. Jaira then praises Asta, acknowledging that it was thanks to him that they were able to protect the students in the corridor. At that moment, Asta shares his plan to establish a library and asks Jaira if she would support him by providing publications. Jaira doesn't hesitate to tell Asta that she is on board with the plan, and Asta lets out a sigh of relief. He has effectively secured the 3 academic ties he aimed for. Jaira then shifts to the main focus of their discussion, the artifact. She informs him that researching it could take a considerable amount of time. While Jaira acknowledges the risks involved, she believes this isn't a significant concern since they can always opt to destroy it if necessary. However, she is primarily concerned about the bad guys who will want to get their hands on the gauntlet, specifically the forbidden magic cabal known as Salvatium. Asta is completely unaware of this cabal, so Jaira explains that it is a union of individuals who have mastered forbidden magic. While they may operate differently, they share a single goal: to recreate the demonic realm. She is convinced that Frizen is connected to Salvatium, as he was the first to bring the entire situation to life. With Frizen now dead, Jai warns Asta that the Cabal will come after him in an attempt to recover the artifact. She reveals that their persistence rivals even that of Declan. Jaira tells Asta that there is a real possibility he might die, even though she has no idea how strong he truly is. When Asta hears this, he becomes even more excited instead of scared, as the thought of fighting the Salvatium brings him joy. He plans to find them and take them down in hell. Jaira is surprised by the funny yet dangerous expression on Asta's face. Just then, Asta pulls out the gauntlet and hands it to Jaira, asking her to conduct research on it. Jaira assures him that she will, but suddenly, one of the assistants barges into the room, looking very worried. He then reveals that Farron, the head of the Declan house, has just arrived at the academy, sending a wave of shock through Asta's body. The entire academy immediately goes into full panic mode as the headmaster instructs everyone to gather their belongings. Students are sent back to their dormitories while security is tightened. The headmaster, Perun, and Jaira then wait to welcome Declan to the academy. This is the first time the headmaster will meet Declan, who became the head of the family at the age of 30, due to his significant achievements. However, it is widely known that Declan's atrocities escalated after he took over. Despite this, the headmasters determine not to judge Declan solely based on his past. At the same time, the headmaster is displeased that Declan is riding into the academy, as it is customary for everyone, regardless of their prestige, to arrive on foot. Declan finally arrives where the trio is waiting and asks if it is time yet. The headmaster, confused, inquires about what Declan means. Declan mentions that he heard about the attack on the trial corridor. The headmaster matches his energy, telling Declan that he is speaking about something that has not been confirmed. Frustrated, the headmaster expresses his anger that the Declan family is implicated in the incident, while Declan acts as if he knows nothing. Just then, Declan flashes a fake smile before revealing that he came to the academy to offer his assistance. He unveils his pocket space, explaining how he managed to capture those responsible for the attack. Inside his pocket space are the heads of the attackers, and he mentions that Weimar was the leader. Declan proudly states that he did a thorough job by eliminating Weimar and his children. Meanwhile, Asta watches from a rooftop, unfazed by the news of Declan's actions against Weimar. However, he is concerned about how perfect the timing seems. He recalls that the only person he mentioned Weimar and Declan to is the headmaster, and Declan just happened to show up the very next day. He wonders if this is merely luck or if Declan is genuinely meticulous. Nonetheless, Asta feels relieved that he finally has the opportunity to connect with Declan in his current life, even though he still feels outmatched. Some days later, the academy returned to its usual vibrant life. However, Farron had taken action during his last visit. He mentioned his plan to send a direct descendant of Declan's bloodline as an undergraduate at the academy. Essentially, he was trying to play the hostage card, a tactic reserved for prestigious houses. As if on cue, the Imperial House announced the enrollment of the third princess. Nonetheless, this will take place later. Asta believes that the event will take place the following year. To lift the spirits at the school, they organized the Pistoniki Festival, a victory celebration for Academy students who had been mobilized during the Age of War. Asta views the trial corridor as being treated by the Academy as equivalent to war, which is a great way to lighten the mood. To make the occasion even more enjoyable, the Academy permitted alcohol, ultimately providing a sense of freedom for everyone. Even Damien found himself intrigued by the idea of drinking alcohol with the mercenaries. Just then, an announcement echoed through the area, informing the students that the award ceremony was about to begin. Those interested in attending were instructed to gather in front of the Sage Hall. Although Damien wasn't keen on going, Asta was determined to drag him along. Asta was excited about the award ceremony, eager to collect the reward for his accomplishments. After the headmaster finishes the speech, they move on to the award presentation. The recipients are invited to the stage as their names are called. The first person on the list is Dahlia, followed by Damien, and then Evelyn. Chenbi and Asta join the others as they walk to the stage, but Asta can't help but wonder what Evelyn did to deserve an award. He feels concerned about her, especially since he doesn't recall anything about her from his previous life. Despite his uncertainty, Asta concludes that she must have accomplished something significant during the trial corridor event that earned her this recognition. When it was time to present Asta with his award, he received a top-grade certificate in an elegant box, handed to him by the headmaster himself. After the award ceremony, Asta and his friends ran around the school enjoying themselves until later that night. The school then launched a dazzling fireworks display that captivated everyone's attention. Even though Asta considers it a waste of money, he plans to launch a festival on the day he builds his library. He intends to stay at the top of the tower to see the ground below. Asta's plan is to hold a week-long festival, and afterward, he will organize the Sage Ascension ceremony. The next morning, the headmaster delivers a message to Asta through his white owl. The headmaster instructs Asta to meet him at the usual place, and Asta promptly leaps out of the window toward the designated location. This spot is a deserted building that was once utilized by troubleshooters, making it the ideal venue for secret discussions within the academy. As Asta enters the building, he is taken aback to see that the headmaster has tidied it up, giving it a much more appealing appearance. Once they have settled in, Asta asks the old man why he called for him so early in the morning. The old man reminds him that he owes him a favor, and it finally dawns on Asta that he traded a favor for the library pass. The headmaster then reveals that the favor is an easy one. He wants Asta to deliver a letter to his friend. Before taking the letter, Asta already knows it won't end well. He asks the headmaster where he is supposed to go, and the headmaster reveals that his destination is the Hammer and Great Forest, where the target is hiding. Asta is shocked to hear this because the Hammer and Great Forest has been preserved since ancient times, filled with countless monsters and magical materials. He cannot believe that the headmaster is sending him to find someone in such a dangerous place. The headmaster teases Asta, insisting that it shouldn't be difficult, since there are others living there as well. He encourages Asta to check a few base camps, assuring him that he will definitely find what he needs. Asta, concerned about the potential dangers, is about to voice his worries when the headmaster interrupts, revealing that he had already prepared something in advance. He places a list in front of Asta, leaving him dumbfounded. Everything on the list is incredibly expensive and rare. The headmaster then asks Asta what he wanted to say, but Asta quickly swallows his words before telling the headmaster that he is up for the task. The reward for the mission is simply too great for Asta to refuse. He is amazed by the level of rewards he has been receiving lately. Additionally, he has managed to obtain the Irkani Workshop Artifact Production Voucher, a prestigious production voucher from a workshop where even noble houses must wait their turn. Thanks to all of this, Asta simply can't refuse the headmaster's proposal. The headmaster then reveals his plans to call the target back to the academy. With the situation in the demon realm and Declan's commotion, the headmaster believes it's time to finally get assistance from his comrade. However, the comrade has claimed he is dealing with something personal, which is why the headmaster wants Asta to go over there and help him sort out his affairs. In the end, Asta managed to negotiate for more compensation for the mission before he finally left the meeting. Afterward, he began to contemplate his next plan. Initially, he had considered increasing his mana capacity using the top-grade elixir, but now that he has 3, he feels there is no need to focus solely on mana capacity. With this in mind, he decides to pursue a technique inspired by the Knight's reinforced body, which is achieved through ether. This technique is known as mana limbs. It allows someone like Asta to surpass the limits of a troubleshooter from his past life. With this in mind, Asta is thrilled that he is finally about to upgrade his frail body. He is ecstatic not only about being a mage, but also about gaining knight abilities. Without wasting any time, Asta sits down to absorb one of the top-grade elixirs. He follows the same breathing technique, but this time he pours every drop of the top-grade elixir's mana straight into his body. This allows the mana to soak into every joint, muscle fiber, and nerve cell. In just a minute of taking it in, Asta's body begins to burn up from the firebrand. However, he manages to maintain his focus and push past the first limitation. He continues to move slowly, circulating the mana through his entire body instead of just the mana circuits. After this, he injects the mana into his muscle fibers, ultimately pushing his body to the extreme. The pain is so intense that it feels as if he is being torn apart. At one point, he considers stopping, but he pushes himself to go even further. He pushes himself to the last strand of energy in his body, ultimately succeeding in acquiring the mana limbs. In fact, he believes he has exceeded his initial goals. Although his durability can't fully support the output, he is confident that his reinforced flesh will prevent him from losing to a knight. He realizes he will become a significant challenge for knights once his body reaches the maturity stage. Asta then decides to test his body's regeneration. He cuts himself, expecting the wound to heal in about 15 minutes, which was the usual time in his past life. However, to his astonishment, the injury closes almost instantly, showcasing a troll-level regeneration. Asta can hardly believe that he has gained this unexpected bonus. He realizes that if he includes the Healing Light Tome from Wenji, he could essentially become invincible, like Damien, the monster of Blandor. Just then, he realizes there is a surprise that emits a bright light, revealing that his blood reacts to mana. He concludes that the Blandor family's healing art could advance significantly if he can master it. Apparently, the tome contains a proliferation formula for regenerating flesh and blood, and Asta begins to contemplate discussing it with Wenji. However, he quickly dismisses the idea, as he wants nothing to do with him. Asta decides to talk to Lancy about the situation, since she will be coming over for a parent consultation very soon. Shortly afterward, Lancy arrives and expresses her relief that Asta and Damien are safe. She asks if there is any problem, but Damien assures her that he is doing just fine. Lancy then reveals that Gamel asked her to pass along a message regarding the Blandor Inner Lake construction and the statue design that Damien proposed last time. Lancy admits that the proposal was detailed, but Gamo doesn't approve of it. This shocks Damien, who is already excited. However, Lancy reassures him that there is still a chance. She tells Damien he needs to place within the top 16 overall in the Academy's midterm evaluation, which would give her leverage when she talks to Gamo on his behalf. Asta immediately figures out Lancy's game plan the moment she says this. Lancy reassures Damien that he doesn't need to worry, as Asta and Chenbi are there to assist him. He then informs Asta and Chenbi that they will be generously rewarded if they can help Damien. Asta realizes he has been backed into a corner, but he has no choice but to comply, because he needs the proliferation formula, and Lancy is his only way out. With this understanding, Asta assures Lancy that he will help. Damien is asked how well he understands the basics of magic, but he stands there looking bewildered, as he doesn't even know what the basics are. When asked if he has any books, he pulls out a box filled with all the books he brought. Chenbi can't believe his eyes and concludes that they are about to go through hell. Chenbi then asks Damien if he submitted the assignments the teacher gave on time, to which Damien replies that he did. Chenbi heaves a sigh of relief, having just dodged a bullet. However, Asta remains uncertain about whether Damien is telling the truth. When Asta looks into Damien's current standing, he discovers that Damien is struggling in nearly all subjects except for cultural studies, which Asta believes is due to the education he received from his family. The areas where Damien is having difficulties are classes related to magic, and Asta isn't entirely sure he won't lose his temper while trying to teach him. They are in the middle of their discussion when Furion shows up, mentioning that he overheard their conversation about helping Damien with his studies. Asta asks him why he is approaching them about this, and Furion reveals that he might be able to assist. Damien's face immediately brightens at this news. However, Asta remains skeptical, and Furion can sense that Asta does not trust him. He then decides to show them something that would impress them. Furion pulls out a sheet that Asta immediately recognizes. It turns out to be the completion of the most recent exams given at the Academy, along with all the exams from each of the professors. Essentially, everything from classes M1 to M3 has been summarized on these sheets, leaving Chen completely blown away. Asta, on the other hand, doesn't particularly like what Furion did in the trial corridor, but he believes there is at least a ray of hope. Even though he seriously wants to hit Furion, he decides to hold back for now. Just then, Furion mentions that there is one condition attached to this, and Asta immediately concludes that he might not have to hold back for long before he gets the chance to hit him. Furion reveals his condition and expresses his desire for Asta to help him in the combat that will take place after the midterm evaluation, believing that Asta's combat knowledge will ensure success. Asta eagerly accepts, even telling Furion that he can follow him to the training room right away because he is itching to beat him up. However, Furion quickly clarifies that the help is not for him, but for someone else, causing Asta's mood to shift immediately. Furion tells Asta to come with him to meet the person, and soon the two head outside the academy. After navigating through numerous alleyways, Asta is already contemplating beating the guy up when they finally arrive at a private training center. From the looks of it, Asta can tell that whoever he is meant to train has a lot of money. Moments later, Asta finally meets the person who needs his help, Dahlia Dedenne. Furion pulls Dahlia aside, asking if she really has to go with Asta. Dahlia responds that it's Asta or nothing, as she has no interest in leveraging her family's influence. She pleads with Asta to assist her, and Asta replies that he has an offer for her. Asta suggests that Dahlia use Furion instead of relying on him. He advises her to train with Furion until the exams are over, as he is currently occupied giving Damien private lessons. Furion is taken aback by this suggestion and becomes even more surprised when he realizes that Dahlia might actually consider the offer. Furion yells at Asta, reminding him that he has already fulfilled his part of the deal by providing the study materials. Asta responds that he has paid everything he owed Furion, but he still hasn't paid for what he did to Chenbi in the trial corridor. Furion is shocked, never expecting to be caught in such a way. Just then, Dahlia enters, telling Asta that his offer is acceptable to her. Furion yells in protest, questioning why they are making decisions for him when he hasn't even expressed any intention of accepting. He asserts that he is a proud descendant of the Dedenne family. Asta teases Furion, telling him that he is free to claim whatever he wants, but since he needs a punching bag at that moment, Furion might just suffice. Furion's pride shatters, leaving him no choice but to walk away, stating that he has exams to prepare for. Asta lets out a sigh of relief, knowing that this will at least allow Chenbi to relax a bit. He then tells Dahlia that he is going to do what is asked of him, as he has already received the full payment. Asta asks Dahlia if she wants him to train her in hand-to-hand combat, but she stands there completely overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Eveline is meeting with one of her associates, and it seems she wants him to steal the exam questions for her. She provides him with an address where he will meet someone who specializes in this kind of task. Back with Asta, he still can't believe he has to train Dahlia. In his past life, they would have been fighting each other by now, as the two had a long-standing rivalry. In fact, Asta would have killed her numerous times if it weren't for the reinforcements. However, after she became Denier's chief mage, their paths never crossed again. Setting aside his grudge, Asta realizes that training Dahlia could be quite beneficial. At one point, Dahlia even managed to suppress Declan. This excites Asta, prompting him to consider moving the timeline up a bit. He feels grateful that he agreed to the deal because if he doesn't confront Dahlia now, he may not get another chance. Asta then asks her what she believes is the most important aspect of one-on-one combat, to which Dahlia responds that she has no idea. She wants to learn the movement Asta used when he faced Exeter. Asta is surprised that Dahlia is so determined to learn his method, and he advises her to find a technique that suits her own style. He asks her to imagine a battle between an official rank 8 mage and a rank 9 mage. Dahlia believes the rank 8 mage would win, but Asta corrects her, explaining that the victor will be the one who strikes the first blow. Dahlia is confused by this, so Asta provides a practical example by firing a mono bullet that hits her on the head, explaining that whoever gets the first strike wins. By the time Asta starts heading back to the academy, it is already late in the evening, but he believes that Dahlia will improve if she gets beaten up more often. Just then, he remembers that Damien is still in the picture. Meanwhile, Evelyne's lackey is contemplating what to do about the task assigned to him. It soon occurs to him that Evelyne's goal with the contract she is distributing is to establish connections with noble families. If he plays his cards right, he might become part of that network as well. He recalls how everything fell apart last time, but he is convinced that this time will be different. He soon arrives at his destination, a seemingly ordinary tea house, where the attendant asks him what he would like to order. The dude mentions the code phrase he was given, "Freeze the dragon horn, tea hot." The attendant tells him to give him a moment. With this, the dude feels reassured that he is in the right place, relieved that he didn't accidentally say the code in a regular shop, which would have been quite embarrassing. When the attendant returns with the tea, he notes that he can see the dude is nervous, which is quite normal. Many people assume that the term dark merchant refers to a hidden location. However, no one would expect such a bright and beautiful place to be a black market. The attendant then asks how he found his way to the tea house, and the dude reveals that he is there to obtain the exam papers for the academy's basic first-year class. The attendant mentions that someone is willing to sell the academy's exam papers and asks which department the dude is looking for. The dude replies that he wants the magic department, and the attendant reveals that he is in luck because he is scheduled to meet the seller the following weekend. He then asks Evelyne's lackey if he would like to join him for the meeting, and it suddenly dawns on the dude that the attendant is trying to rile him up completely. Nonetheless, he agrees to go with him, stating that it is basic merchant practice to verify the seller and inspect the quality of the goods. Deep down, he knows there is no place to retreat to. The attendant is pleased with his agreement and informs him that he will relay the time and place. However, he cautions him not to write it down anywhere. As the attendant shares the information, Asta listens in from outside. Asta refuses to believe that everything is just a coincidence, especially since an exam paper seller and buyer appeared at the same time. He realizes how messed up the entire situation is, and yet not a single person has mentioned the price. Despite this, he decides to witness the whole thing for himself. With some Declan clothes that suit the role, he chooses to act immediately. He reaches into his subspace and pulls out the outfit, contemplating whether he should start by robbing the richest guy on the block. Meanwhile, the attendant reflects on the dangers of his job when Asta walks into the tea house, dressed in the Declan outfit. The attendant is shocked to his core, not expecting one of Declan's elite mage units to appear in the tea house. Asta tells him to drop the act and not to worry about the whole code thing. The attendant quickly falls in line, asking Asta what he is looking for. Asta replies that he is searching for a subspace pouch. Sweat runs down the dude's face when he hears this, as he struggles to accept that Asta is looking for Callahan's subspace pouch, which vanished after his death. His main concern is why Asta would be searching for it at their store, so he quickly insists that they have never seen such an item there before. Asta then inquires about the conversation the dude had with the boy who just left, noting that he looked really suspicious. The attendant is stunned by the question, leaving him to wonder how he should respond to the situation. Asta quickly demonstrates his dangerous nature by emitting a terrifying aura from his body when he senses that the attendant is taking too long to answer. The attendant notices this and is gripped by fear, realizing that he is not standing in front of an ordinary Declan mage. He folds, telling Asta that he will confess everything he and the boy discussed because it has nothing to do with Declan. Asta responds that he is ready to listen and will decide if there is anything to hide. Just as he is about to start talking, Asta interrupts, insisting that he confess everything as they head to the warehouse. The man nervously asks Asta why they need to go to the warehouse, and Asta replies that he needs to check it himself. Asta intensifies the man's anxiety as he locks eyes with him, asking if he is hiding something, trying to manipulate him into agreement. As they descend into the basement, the attendant questions Asta about the necessity of going that far. Asta reassures him that he has nothing to fear if he is innocent, swearing it on the name of Declan. He emphasizes that anything the attendant says or confesses will remain a secret forever as long as it has nothing to do with Declan. The attendant reveals that the boy came under Evelyn's instructions. He admits that he is someone who does business for money, so he doesn't know the exact details, but he believes she is trying to acquire the Academy papers on the black market. Asta is surprised to hear this, as Evelyn is the talk of the Academy and is always seen as a role model to others because of her impressive morals. This leaves Asta wondering why someone like her would engage in such actions. Asta can't believe that one person is stuck working as a private tutor, while another enjoys the luxury of handing out money for whatever they desire. Upon arriving at the warehouse, Asta notices it is filled with a variety of nice items. He tells the attendants that, at first glance, everything seems fine, but he still wants to verify to ensure there are no issues. Asta instructs him to prepare 2 subspace pouches, as they need to take any suspicious items with them. The attendant freezes in fear, realizing he is ultimately done for. Meanwhile, Chenbi struggles to teach Damien, who constantly insists that his own method is superior. Despite Damien's claims that the spell is working, Chenbi must emphasize the importance of the stabilization formula. Furion nearly screams in frustration as he realizes he is trapped in a different kind of hell. He knows that Damien is a genius, but he is the type of genius who lacks common sense. In fact, whatever Damien is attempting defies logic, as he manages to easily manifest a spell that shouldn't work at all. This leaves Furion wondering what might happen if Asta calms down and takes the time to teach Dahlia. Just then, Dahlia arrives on the scene, and Furion nearly loses his mind when he realizes that Asta has beaten her up all in the name of training. Before they know it, a week has passed, and Chenbi asks Furion how the parts he graded are looking. Noting that everything he graded is correct, Furion tells Damien that his own path is the same, and Damien is shocked to hear that he got everything right. Furion is completely overwhelmed, as Damien has exceeded his expectations in just a week. He can only hope that Asta is also doing well on his end. Meanwhile, Asta observes Evelyn's lackey, Deve, and although he is itching to confront him, he knows he has to wait until he meets the seller. He also considers ruining everything for Debe and Evelyn at that moment, but he understands that there would be others willing to buy the exam papers as well. Moments later, Debe arrives at the location provided and must get past a bouncer. Later that evening, Debe returns to Evelyn's chambers to deliver the materials he acquired. After assessing them, they realize that it is the real deal. Evelyn tells her mysterious assistant that they will continue giving Debe opportunities. Upon hearing this, Debe smiles, believing the family will no longer ignore him. Evelyn then informs Debe that he can leave, assuring him they will reach out again once everything is confirmed to be intact. She adds that from that moment on, Debe will be in charge of distributing exam papers to their clients, and he agrees to this arrangement. After he leaves, Evelyn smiles with a sense of accomplishment while mocking Debe for being a fool. She then asks her assistant if the work she assigned to him is going smoothly. He confirms that it is, revealing that in just a few days, every job Evelyn was involved in will be replaced with Debe's name and the trading company, Pingrove. Evelyn instructs her assistant to ensure that everything runs smoothly, emphasizing that the only reason they are using Debe is for this purpose. Unknown to them, Asta overheard everything they discussed, and he can't believe how rotten she is. This leaves Asta wondering if there is a way to handle the situation, as he needs to ruin the whole scheme while guiding Evelyn to ensure she doesn't make the same mistake again. Even though he recorded the entire conversation with a crystal orb, Asta knows it would be a waste to use it immediately. Asta feels confused. He's accustomed to smashing things, but he knows that's not the solution for this situation. Suddenly, an idea strikes him. He realizes he can guide Evelyn down the right path. With renewed determination, Asta reaches for the exam papers and begins copying everything onto a new sheet. He is impressed by his handwriting, a skill he developed from copying others' writing when he was young. Asta didn't expect to do it again for something like this, but he feels proud of himself for accomplishing it. Once he finishes copying, he informs Evelyn that she is about to become a good person. Meanwhile, Dahlia has finally grasped what Asta was trying to teach her about landing the first strike. Soon afterward, the exams come to an end, leaving everyone wondering if they wrote the correct answers on their answer sheets. One student, Demon von Harimar, who is Evelyn's client, feels exceptionally pleased with his performance and boasts to his peers about how he aced the exam. Demonin is the eldest son of Viscount Harimar, whose family controls the kingdom's main grain warehouses. Evelyn is pleased to have secured a strong partnership with someone who oversees the cereal fields, thanks to leaked exam questions. In total, she has 4 similar deals running simultaneously and concludes that this is the deal of the century. In fact, she is confident that this is how things will continue. Suddenly, an examiner enters the hall and tells Demonin to follow him because the director is waiting for him. Fear grips Evelyn when she hears this, as it can only mean one thing. The next morning, the students gather, and the first-year students are ordered to assemble in the grand hall for an emergency meeting. The students are confused as the innocent ones have no idea why they are being summoned out of nowhere. Some are aware of the massive cheating scandal, while Evelyn shakes in her spot, wondering if the whole situation can be traced back to her. She feels confident that it can't, believing she left no trace. At the same time, she considers the possibility that it was Debay, but quickly dismisses the thought. While he may be slow, he is certainly not reckless. The examiner soon enters the room and instructs everyone to keep their mouths shut. He acknowledges that rumors are already spreading, but he intends to clarify the situation for those who are unaware of what is happening. The examiner reveals that several students were caught cheating during the first year's midterm exams and expresses his disappointment over the shameful scandal that has occurred in their academy. This immediately confirms the suspicions of those who believed something like this was happening. The innocent students understand that the guilty ones are finished, and Evelyn is already terrified. The examiner announces that the main instigator has been identified as Debay, who has been expelled along with his 4 accomplices. Additionally, the academy will demand full compensation for the damages caused. The examiner continues by stating that it wasn't their faculty who uncovered the plot. It was a student with an unwavering sense of justice. He informs everyone that they are gathered to commend the exemplary courage of this student, and just then, he calls Evelyn's name, telling her to step forward. Evelyn is taken aback when she hears her name, and the other students begin to hail her. She tries to explain that she wasn't the one, but they simply see her as a modest student. Without giving her a chance to plead her case, Evelyn is pushed to the front as the hero who saved the day. Confused and unsettled, her spirit struggles with the injustice of it all. Meanwhile, Asta stands in the back, clapping for Evelyn and encouraging her to stay true to herself from that moment on, as she is known as the champion of lost causes. Asta embodies the role of a benevolent judge, dedicated to correcting the corrupt. 1 week later, the students learn that the rankings have been posted, and they rush over to the board to check their results. Damien and his friends are amazed to find him in 18th position, having exceeded their expectations. Meanwhile, Asta maintains his cold demeanor and tells Damien to look closely, pointing out that Demenin is ranked 7th, which is higher than him. Just then, an examiner arrives and informs them that the wrong results were posted. He approaches the board and displays the correct test results. This time, Damien moves up to 16th place, and he nearly goes crazy with happiness. Asta, on the other hand, is thrilled that Damien passed because he can finally collect his reward, the multiplication formula. Chenbi celebrates Damien's win, suggesting he might have a talent for teaching and could stay in the advanced class after graduation to apply as an assistant. Asta overhears this and quickly tells him to be quiet. Although he didn't intend to voice his thoughts, he can't help but speak up because of how important Chenbi is to him. Asta then warns Chenbi that an assistant was involved in the cheating incident. This was because he was so broke that he had no choice but to sell exam answer sheets just to pay his bills. Asta asks him if he knows how long it takes for an assistant to become an associate professor, and Chenbi replies that he heard it takes 3 to 4 years. When Asta asks who told him this, he reveals it was Perrin. Asta then genuinely inquires if he wants to become a professor, and Chenbi responds that it seems rewarding in a way. Chenbi asks Asta if he believes he isn't cut out to be a professor. Asta responds that there is a path for him if teaching is his dream. He encourages Chenbi to become an archmage, a title held by someone so powerful that no one would dare to challenge him. With a smile, Asta adds that once he becomes an archmage, he can train his students however he wants, just as he did with Damien. This word resonates deeply with Chenbi, and Asta can already see that he is reflecting on it. This is precisely what Asta desires, as he is encouraging Chenbi to dream big. After what he accomplished with Damien, Asta believes that being a mere assistant would be a waste of Chenbi's considerable talent. Asta wants Chenbi to become an archmage, so he can finally repay him for saving his life. Meanwhile, two mysterious individuals are holding a meeting about ancient ruins that have just been discovered in the forest of Haemun. It appears that this is going to be a big deal. A few days later, the trio meets Lancy to receive their reward. She informs them that the multiplication formula they are seeking is not particularly difficult. In fact, she assures Asta that she will provide him with a high-tier formula, leaving him stunned, as he wasn't expecting such a high-level reward. Lancy then turns to Chenbi, mentioning that she did some digging and discovered a problem with his family. She asks him if he is aware of this issue. Chenbi admits that he knows the situation is worsening. Lancy tells him that Blandor can actually resolve everything and provide his family with a better environment. Chenbi quickly responds, thanking Lancy for the offer, but assuring her that he is fine. Lancy urges Chenbi not to take it the wrong way, and he reassures her that he is not thinking about it that way. He lets her know that he would like to stay friends with Damien forever, and Damien subtly blushes upon hearing this. Lancy is impressed by his answer, and Chenbi asks if he can request something else instead. Lancy encourages him to go ahead. Chenbi reveals that if he ever gets the chance, he would like to study magic at House Blandor to broaden his horizons. Lancy then asks him if this is enough for him, and he replies that it is. When Gamu hears what Chenbi said, she is completely overwhelmed with joy that her son has found a reliable friend. She decides to reward Chenbi, and they send him a letter announcing that, from that moment forward, House Blandor has become the patron house of Chenbi. Chenbi is so shocked when he reads the letter that he almost passes out, shedding tears of joy. In the end, the midterm evaluation concluded with results that pleased everyone. Soon afterward, Jera informs the students that they will soon engage in interpersonal combat, which applies only to the first-year basic class. Classes will be fully suspended, with every lesson focused on practical combat. However, she makes it clear that the training will be left to the students' discretion. She informs them that the preparation classes will proceed as usual, but attendance is not mandatory. One of the students asks Jira what she means by "at their own discretion," and she explains that this means they are free to attend classes or not. In fact, they are allowed to return to their homes to train. She reassures them that they don't have to worry because the professors, certified by the Imperial Court at Grade 5, will be invited to teach. After the announcement, Asta is left wondering why the interpersonal combat schedule was suddenly altered. He realizes that the professors are hiding something, and it seems the decision came from higher authorities rather than the professors themselves. Later that day, Asta receives a message from the headmaster instructing him to meet at 8 p.m. that evening. When night falls, Asta arrives at their usual spot and is completely shocked to find that everything has changed. In fact, the headmaster has set up barriers strong enough to conceal the abandoned warehouse, since he has transformed the entire area into a private resort. Asta realizes he can test the multiplication formula he just learned. Asta unleashes the ruby and infuses the formula with it. Surprisingly, the formula works, as the rubies draw in ambient mana and perfectly mirror the original. However, their magical power remains insufficient. He is about to go all out when the headmaster shows up, asking what he is doing. Surprised to see the headmaster, he quickly realizes that the headmaster is even more astonished by the rubies. The headmaster inquires if he can use any magic with the rubies, to which he replies, yes. He then demonstrates an example, leaving the old dwarf in shock. He will never be able to defeat him. Asta expresses his surprise that he can store unrefined mana in the rubies and then cast spells with it. He yells in curiosity, asking Asta about the range, but quickly shifts to inquire about where Asta got the rubies. Asta assures the old man that he will share everything, but first he wants a favor. Deep down, Asta sees the perfect punching bag in the headmaster, who confidently declares that no matter how much power Asta throws around, he will never be able to defeat him. He won't be able to touch a single hair on his head. Asta doesn't argue. Instead, he gets straight to work, merging the rubies together until he gathers sufficient mana. At this point, the headmaster realizes what's happening and starts screaming at Asta, but Asta refuses to back down. Once he believes the skill is ready, he unleashes it on the old dwarf, resulting in a massive explosion. Asta still finds the situation underwhelming. As the dust settles, the headmaster is clearly losing his mind. He screams at Asta, demanding to know who he is and where he came from. The headmaster admits that he already recognized Asta's mana as pure for his age, but what Asta just did is beyond anything he can comprehend. Asta responds that he is just a regular, ordinary guy and asks the headmaster if he believes he is some great demon that has possessed someone. The headmaster counters that Asta's definition of ordinary is quite different from his own and suggests that a good beating might help him understand. He admits that the magic is so strange that he can barely grasp its principles. Then, he asks Asta where the red rubies have disappeared to, but instead of answering, Asta simply flicks him off. When the two finally settle down to talk, Asta asks the old man why he summoned him. The old man reveals that it concerns the great forest. However, before saying anything further, he activates the orb on his table, allowing them to see the reason for the summons. Asta gazes into the orb and is left in total shock, fear etched across his face. The great forest of Hamelin has remained untouched since ancient times, primarily due to the presence of all sorts of monsters. Humans are adaptable creatures, and even within this forest, they manage to survive. However, only elite mercenaries are able to operate in the great forest. In the image shown to Asta, he sees these mercenaries trembling in fear, facing not just any undead, but a terrifyingly powerful kind of undead. These are a type of undead that move by soul rather than memories, meaning they are self-born undead. The headmaster then reveals that a terrifying creature known as the Destroyer, which was sealed within the ancient ruins in the forest, has broken free. Apparently, vengeful spirits have emerged from the depths in pursuit of the Destroyer. The headmaster emphasizes that the situation is urgent, but none of his disciples can leave on short notice. He reveals they must set out no later than 2 days from that moment. The headmaster then asks Asta for his thoughts, assuring him that even if he declines the offer, he will not retract the reward he has already given him. He encourages Asta to view it as a gift for the younger generation, indicating that there will be no additional rewards. The headmaster emphasizes that everything ultimately depends on Asta's will. It's not just about resisting material temptation. Lives are at stake. As the headmaster continues to caution Asta, he suddenly interrupts, expressing his willingness to go. The headmaster is taken aback by this response. Asta acknowledges the headmaster's concern for his friend, noting that it seems the guy won't turn back, even if it costs him his life. Asta admits that he is not a moral ideal, but at the same time, he is not someone who will bargain with another person's life. Deep down, Asta would have left even if the old man had forbidden it. Asta believes that what he wants to learn lies in the forest, and there is no way he is going to miss the chance to go there. After they finish their conversation, the headmaster gives him a teleportation ticket, instructing him to show it to the official, who will allow him to pass without delay. He also gives him an artifact cloak imbued with protective magic. Asta teases the old man, saying he's already giving him a lot and might not have anything else left to offer. The old man retorts, telling him to be quiet and warns that when the time comes, it will be too late to prepare. Finally, he hands Asta a mask known as the Sock Wall Mark. Since Asta will want to keep his identity hidden, the old man assures him that with the mask, his friend won't lose track of him unnoticed. The headmaster reveals that based on the battle results and the final examination, he will register everything under his name. However, he wants to know Asta's arrangement with House Blandor. Asta reassures the old man that he doesn't need to worry about it, promising to handle it himself. He then sends a letter to Chenby and Damien, informing them that he is leaving for training and that they shouldn't look for him. Instead of getting mad, Damien decides to step outside to train as well. Later, in Greentown, a city near the great forest of Hamelin, Asta finds himself sitting alone in a warehouse contemplating his next move. Meanwhile, the old man's friend, Oberon, is meeting with a guide named Ray who will take him to the forest. Ray confides in Oberon about his fear of returning to the forest, prompting Oberon to remind him of the escort contract that exists between the 4th base camp and Greentown. Furthermore, Ray has already received a 4-fold advance for the risk involved, yet he is attempting to cancel the contract. Teasingly, Ray tells Oberon that he won't find another guide at this late hour. He plays the emotional card, expressing his desire to survive, emphasizing that it's clear monsters could appear at any moment. Deep down, Ray is determined to make as much money as he can from Oberon, as he is not foolish enough to venture into the forest and back. He plans to find a way to ditch Oberon and use the earnings to settle in a quiet village. Just then, Asta enters the room, his face obscured by the mask given to him by the old man. Both Ray and Oberon are startled and demand to know who Asta is, but Asta turns the question back to Oberon, asking him to identify himself. Once Oberon does, Asta confirms that he is the headmaster's mentee. Asta concludes that he is in the right place and tells Oberon that he is free to call him. Once Ray realizes that Oberon's subordinate has arrived, he decides to play it smart by telling Oberon to take his map so they can enter the forest themselves. He presents the map as if it holds great importance, and the unsuspecting Oberon agrees, stating that he and Asta will find a way to manage on their own. Ray thanks Oberon, and just as he is about to walk off with a smile on his face, Asta orders him to stop, but he continues in a scary voice, telling Ray that he has 1 second to take a seat. Ray still doesn't understand what is happening, but as the second ticks away, Asta descends on him, beating him up like a drum. Oberon watches in horror as Asta beats the man to the ground, leaving him to wonder if they have any chance of defeating the destroyer. Meanwhile, the two strange men meet again, this time at an unusual location where they are attempting to undo a seal. However, things are not progressing as quickly as they had hoped. They are surprised that the beast has not yet awakened, even though its aura has filled the air with a sense of death. Knowing that Asta is heading into the forest to confront the monster known as the Destroyer, one of them decides to intercept him while the other focuses on the seal. Solian asks his friend Kellogg if he can handle Asta, boasting about the number of mages he has killed, claiming that Asta doesn't even pose a threat to him. Meanwhile, Asta and his party are already making their way into the forest, with Ray leading them despite having been beaten up mercilessly. Oberon is relieved that everything is going so well thanks to Asta's timely arrival. Although Asta's face and body are covered, Oberon can't determine his age, but he assumes they are the same age based on his height. It turns out that Asta is nicknamed the New Moon, known for his ability to easily solve problems. Just then, Asta asks the guide if he would like to hand over his heavy backpack so he can store it in his subspace. Ray humbly rejects the offer, explaining that the pack contains emergency supplies he might need at a moment's notice, so it's best for him to keep it with him. Asta quickly realizes that Ray has not abandoned his quest to rob Oberon, but they are still in the forest. Moments later, Ray senses something approaching and warns Oberon to be careful. Just then, they spot orcs riding on a wolf's back, charging toward them at high speed. Ray panics upon seeing this, realizing they are nowhere near the second base camp, which is within the orcs' territory. Oberon freezes in fear, unsure of what to do, but suddenly, red rubies fill the air. Before launching the attack, Asta instructs Oberon to put up a shield. As soon as the orcs come within range, Asta unleashes his devastating assault. The moment the rubies soar toward the orcs, they understand that their fate is sealed. The attack lands, unleashing a massive explosion that forces Oberon and Ray to cover their eyes. When the smoke finally clears, all that remains is pure destruction. Seeing Asta's overwhelming power, Ray accepts the use of his subspace, having come to terms with the fact that there is no escape for him. Asta agrees, telling him that he is free to use it. As they continue their journey, they encounter muscular goblins, which Asta defeats with a single blow. Asta is completely shocked by the appearance of the goblins, leading him to wonder if they have changed because of the Destroyer. Ray suggests taking a closer look, and Asta agrees. After a quick observation, Ray identifies the goblins as belonging to the second base camp, known as the Ka. However, their presence indicates that they are either expanding their territory or fleeing from something. Asta concludes that the more likely scenario is that they are being chased. Judging by their claws, which are covered in dust and tree bark, and their feet, which are completely shredded, it all points to the fact that they are running from something. Ray suggests taking a detour to a safer route because the goblins hunt in packs and are at the top of the food chain in that area. He knows that whatever scares the goblins is no joke, so he tells Asta it would be better to avoid unknown variables if they can. Surprisingly, Asta agrees with Ray, stating that unexpected risks are the worst kind, so they will proceed with Ray's approach. Asta acknowledges Ray's sharp senses, noting that despite the area's interference, Ray has managed to find the optimal route to avoid it all. Asta has no choice but to admit that Ray is more competent than he initially thought, and he decides to follow Ray's lead for now. Soon afterward, Ray informs the two that they are almost at their destination. Once they cross the swamp ahead, they will reach the first base camp. However, he urges them to get some rest while he scouts the area before they cross. As they settle down, Asta notices how nervous Oberon is, and he doesn't blame him. The detour they took has already cost them a day. Oberon tells Asta that they don't have time to waste because the monster is definitely coming. He insists that they need to find the Destroyer quickly and kill it before things spiral out of control. Oberon blames himself for what happened, and instead of offering sympathy, Asta agrees with him. He doesn't understand why Oberon is venting his frustration to him when he is not his psychiatrist. Suddenly, Ray appears, fear etched across his face, and he warns the two that they must run because the ruler of the swamp is approaching. Deep within the forest lies a hellish place known as the Depths, and the ruler of the swamp is one of the primeval creatures that emerged from there. No one knows why this swamp ruler abandoned the Depths to make its home in the forest swamplands. Ray expresses frustration about the swamp ruler's sudden appearance after so many years. Asta suggests finding an alternate route to cross the wetlands, reasoning that even though the marsh is the king's domain, it is quite expansive. Ray responds that there is no chance of avoiding it. The moment anyone touches the water, the monster will pick up their scent and chase them to the ends of the world. Oberon asks Ray how long it will take if they choose to take another route. Ray explains that it isn't as simple as it seems, as they will need to make a significant detour. This is why the guides work so hard to secure a direct path through the wetlands. However, if they decide to take a detour at this point, Ray reveals that it will take them at least 10 days, and on the worst side, it could take up to a month. Oberyn is shocked to hear this, but realizes he has no choice if they are prioritizing safety. Ray asks if he should prepare the route, but Asta intervenes, stating that they will be going through the wetlands. Ray is taken aback by this and attempts to explain to Asta how dangerous the monster is, as it has already killed numerous soldiers, mages, and knights. Asta then clarifies to Ray that he has misunderstood the situation. They are not merely passing through, but they are actually going to kill the ruler of the swamp. Ray realizes that Asta is serious, and he can only sigh in frustration. Oberyn interjects, telling Asta that he doesn't need to go to such lengths for him, as he is already grateful that they have come this far. Asta cuts him off, insisting that something must be done about the monster. He challenges Oberyn, asking if this is how he plans to react when they face the destroyer. Oberyn attempts to use a foolish analogy. Asta informs Oberyn that their plan to kill the ruler of the swamp is already set for the next day, making it clear that there's no changing his mind. In response, Oberyn suggests that there might be a way for him to assist. Asta questions whether Oberyn had intended to stand on the sidelines before. Oberyn admits that his talent hasn't fully awakened yet, but he is confident it can still be of help. Oberyn refers to it as a gift, naming the power Overclock. This ability brings a target's hidden potential to its utmost limit for a brief period. Intrigued, Asta urges Oberyn to explain further. The next morning, Oberyn rises early to prepare for the mission ahead. He is taken aback when he spots Asta in the distance, dragging Ray along with him. Asta had caught Ray attempting to escape and had given him a beating. Asta asks Ray which tree he prefers so he can tie him to it the next time he tries to escape for the wyverns to eat him. Noticing Asta's seriousness, Ray assures him that he no longer has any reason to run away. Once they finish breakfast and Asta's condition is at its optimal level, he turns to Oberyn and asks if he is ready. Oberyn replies that he is. As expected, Ray admits he is not ready, prompting Asta to tell the two to stand back while he engages the beast. Asta then steps into the swamp to draw the monster's attention, knowing that once someone enters its territory, it begins to track them. To further entice the creature, he cuts his hand and lets his blood seep into the water. Seconds later, a massive whirlpool erupted on the surface of the water, and the beast emerged. It was so enormous that it towered over Asta, while Oberyn and Ray trembled in fear. Despite the chaos, Asta remained steadfast. He casually turned to Oberyn and encouraged him to proceed with his own part. In response, Oberyn unleashed his skill on Asta to unlock his potential. Asta can feel the power surging through his body, finally experiencing the sense of freedom he has been lacking for some time. As the monster tries to attack, it believes it has him cornered, but Asta has already taken to the air, gaining the height advantage. Grateful for the challenge, Asta thanks the monster, as he is about to test his limits because of it. During the explanation of how the overclock power works, Oberyn admits that he doesn't fully understand it, but he mentions that it unlocks potential beyond all limits. However, he emphasizes that there is one particular rule to follow. Overclock lasts for only 5 minutes, and anything beyond that can be dangerous. Therefore, he must finish the fight within that time frame. Now that Asta stands face to face with the monster, he unleashes a series of magic circles, concluding that 5 minutes is plenty of time for him to have fun with it. Asta activates fire magic that engulfs the monster in flames, so intense that the fire burns even in the water. Oberyn and Ray can hardly believe their eyes as they witness Asta's fire actually igniting in the water. Ray can't believe his eyes as the monster crouches, which means Asta might actually have the chance to kill it. Just then, Ray notices something dangerous and urges Asta to be careful because the monster is about to roar. Before he can send out the warning, the monster lets out a deafening roar, causing the fire magic to start vanishing. Asta realizes that the monster's roar has the ability to disrupt the natural mana flow. He is not entirely surprised, as he wouldn't have expected anything less from the ruler of the swamp. Just then, Ray yells at Asta, warning him not to look into the monster's eyes for too long, as 3 seconds of eye contact will freeze his mana. Asta is shocked that Ray is sharing such an important piece of information at such a crucial moment. It turns out that Ray has always dreaded the king of the swamp because of its ability to disrupt mana. It can also freeze the target's magic. Additionally, its skin is so tough that it can repel a knight's aether, which is why Ray's master advised him long ago that the best strategy against the king of the swamp is to avoid engaging it altogether. However, instead of planning his escape, Ray now believes that Asta has a chance to defeat the monster. Ray clenches his fist, determined to believe in Asta's strength. Asta turns to Ray and tells him they will have a brief discussion later. Ray agrees, but suggests they focus on surviving first, since he can't look the monster in the eyes for more than 3 seconds. Asta decides to take action. He lunges toward the monster and strikes its eyes with the rubies, causing it to scream in agony as its vision is disrupted. The monster scratches its eyes in pain, and as it opens them, it spots Asta lunging toward it. Suddenly, Asta delivers a powerful punch to the monster's body, activating the collision strike skill that sends a wave of energy coursing through it. Despite this, the monster manages to withstand the attack. Asta acknowledges that the monster is quite strong, but he insists that it is far too slow. Determined to finish the battle once and for all, he prepares to end it. Asta tells the monster that it kept him entertained, so he is going to show it something really interesting. He gathers a massive amount of mana and activates a new skill he calls Explosive Annihilation. The monster is struck, and at first, everything seems normal. However, it soon begins to swell from the inside until it ultimately explodes. The monster is defeated and Asta crashes into the water, losing consciousness from exhaustion. He feels disappointed that a mere monster was enough to push him to his limits. He wonders what might have happened if he had used this skill against Declan back then. He is confident he would have been able to block it, but he knows he wouldn't have escaped unscathed, because no matter how sturdy the force field, the vicious explosion would have torn it apart. Asta named his new technique Explosive Annihilation because it destroys everything in its path. Meanwhile, someone was secretly watching Asta, none other than Kellogg. He was surprised to see that Asta had managed to kill the ancient beast he had set up as bait, a feat Asta accomplished by engaging in a fierce brawl and destroying the monster's eyes. Kellogg wonders if Asta is a mage, but he hesitates to believe it due to the immense amount of mana being used. At the same time, the monster doesn't resemble a martial artist. Although Kellogg knows he could also defeat the monster, he remains surprised and impressed. In fact, he feels a sense of fear throughout the encounter, and he laughs maniacally, thrilled by the excitement of the hunt. Suddenly, it dawns on him that Asta is a hunter just like him, leaving him to wonder how he appears to a fellow hunter. However, recognizing the dangers around them, Asta realizes he needs to put more effort into his preparations. Soon afterward, Asta wakes up and asks Oberon how long he has been out. Oberon, surprised to see him awake, tells him that he was unconscious for about 2 hours. Asta groans, complaining that his head is still spinning. Oberon explains that this is a side effect of being hit with overlock, but reassures him that he doesn't need to worry since he kept the duration short, meaning the strain should be minimal. However, he warns Asta that he will likely feel this way for the rest of the day. Deep down, Asta feels as if he is dying, and his hands continue to tremble from the entire ordeal. He realizes that he would have drowned in the swamp if Oberon and Ray hadn't saved him. It then dawns on him that Ray is nowhere to be found, prompting him to ask Asta about his whereabouts. Just then, Ray emerges from the bushes, reassuring Asta that he doesn't need to worry because he has no intention of running away anymore. However, Asta tells him to keep his mouth shut and simply reveal where he is. Ray then confesses that he was investigating the Lord of the Swamp to see if there was anything valuable. Ray then asks Asta what he plans to do with the body of the beast. Asta responds that Ray is free to take it as payment for his life. He even offers Ray a subspace pouch to carry it, and Ray happily thanks him upon hearing this. Asta intends to give Ray one of the pouches he collected from the black market dealer. While Ray celebrates acquiring the beast's body, Oberon asks Asta if he is sure about his decision, noting that the Lord of the Swamp's remains are worth a fortune. Asta responds that he has no interest in the corpse and that Ray needs to earn a living. Oberon is taken aback by this and concludes that Asta is a noble man, considerate and kind. However, Oberon is mistaken. He has no idea that Asta has his own reasons for rejecting the Lord of the Swamp's corpse. The hide and fur are renowned for blocking ether, which means that if someone were to make a robe from it, they could sell it for a high price. However, there are circumstances in which these materials lose their properties once the monster dies. This is why Ray's blade easily cuts into the monster's skin, though he remains unaware of it. Essentially, what remains is nothing more than a pile of junk. Oberon asks Asta about their plan, and Asta replies that they are behind schedule. However, according to Ray, it seems they can still afford to rest for another day. However, Asta has no interest in resting. He wants to get moving as soon as possible. Later that night, they arrive at Base Camp 1. Upon reaching the entrance, Asta comments on how dark it is. Ray explains that the camp doesn't light fires at night because the light could attract monsters. Ray suggests they find the base camp keeper to get their quarters assigned. Asta asks what he means by base camp keeper, and Ray explains that it refers to the mercenary group that owns the camp. He reveals that they take a cut of the materials from every mercenary who stays there. In simple terms, they are glorified bandits who rule over the place. Suddenly, a menacing voice pierces the darkness, telling Ray that he's gotten bolder to compare them to bandits. Ray looks up to see the base chief, Fixer, standing on the watchtower, and he freaks out. Even Oberon feels intimidated by Fixer's imposing presence, and it becomes clear that his group is called Aviat. Fixer then jumps down from his post and lands in front of the group. He stretches his hand toward Asta, but Asta doesn't respond until Fixer explains that he is trying to say hello by shaking his hand. Asta finally agrees to the handshake, and the two unleash a small amount of aura as a demonstration of strength. Once their power struggle concludes, Asta asks Fixer why he came out to greet them. Fixer reveals that he has a proposition, mentioning he has heard they are heading back to base camp. Oberon then asks him how he knows this. Fixer throws Ray under the bus, claiming he heard from him because Ray was busy blabbing about his plans to scam some naive mage. However, this isn't really Fixer's concern. What he wants is for them to take him along to base camp. Asta is shocked to hear this, and Fixer explains that if base camp fails, their camp will be next, which is why they are interested in fighting. Asta isn't entirely against the idea, realizing that the more help they have, the better. He is about to agree to this when Oberon interrupts, rejecting the deal and shocking Asta. Even Fixer questions him about his refusal, to which he responds that the area around the 4th base camp has long since become a land of death. Oberon explains that things have worsened beyond what Fixer imagined, and Fixer interjects, asking Oberon if he is essentially saying that he can't go because it is a death trap. Oberon confirms this, and Fixer loses it, unleashing his overwhelming aura while calling Oberon an arrogant mage. Fixer is furious and demands to know who gave Oberon the right to make such decisions, emphasizing that he has survived this long relying solely on his sword. He insists that while it may seem he is just a lousy sellsword, he and his squad have much to protect and lines they will never cross. At this point, Oberon is already feeling stressed, and Fixer yells at him, asserting that they have just as much right to defend their home. Fixer turns to Oberon, expressing his disappointment, saying he expected more from him as the headmaster's disciple. He tells Oberon that they will find a place for him to sleep, so he can go ahead and rest. The atmosphere grows tense and awkward, prompting Asta to head into the camp to take a shower. After Asta finishes his shower and his teammates have gone to sleep, he decides to meet with Fixer in his office. Fixer asks him what he wants, and Asta replies that he doesn't want anything serious. He just wants to talk. Fixer berates Asta, calling him a kid and telling him that he has some nerve. Asta then asks Fixer how old he is, and Fixer replies that he will be 50 in the coming year. Asta is shocked and tells him that he was already 50 the year before. Fixer, not believing Asta, tells him to leave if he knows he is just there to talk trash. Asta responds that he is pretty sure Fixer is planning to go to the 4th base camp no matter what. Since he is determined to go through with this, Asta suggests that Fixer join them instead, emphasizing that he shouldn't worry about what Oberon said. Asta believes it would be better for them to go together. Fixer is shocked to hear this, as he assumed Oberon was the one in charge. Asta clarifies that Oberon is merely a figurehead, and that he, in contrast, is not like him. In fact, Asta acts his age. Asta reveals that he wants Fixer to follow them because he noticed the aura Fixer displayed when he snapped at Oberon. Asta recognizes that Fixer is experienced and acknowledges how rare it is to find a knight with such power. Fixer realizes that Asta is trying to use his men as meat shields, and Asta confirms this intention. Fixer then inquires if he should take it as a formal request. Asta responds by reminding him that he is essentially offering what Fixer desires, an escape route. Fixer reveals that he will be sending the young mercenaries home, while taking only the experienced ones with him. Asta commends Fixer for his willingness to sacrifice himself for the younger recruits. In response, Fixer tells Asta that he will need Ray to find a path for the young ones, as Ray is the best at what he does. In fact, Fixer is even willing to trade their own guide for him. Asta then asks Fixer why he is bothering himself with this situation. Fixer explains that it concerns the ruler of the swamps and the wetlands, mentioning that their guide isn't skilled enough to navigate through the swamp. Asta reassures him that if this is the issue, he has nothing to worry about, leaving Fixer confused by his response. Asta asks Fixer how he thinks they reached the 1st base camp, explaining that if they had gone around the swamp, they would have ended up at the 3rd base camp. Fixer is surprised by this and asks Asta if the ruler of the camp retreated. Asta informs him that the ruler sent the monster to the afterlife, leaving Fixer utterly shocked. The following morning, the mercenaries begin preparing to leave while the younger members head home. Asta asks Fixer if he has sent a scout to confirm, and Fixer replies that he has. They have confirmed that the ruler of the swamp is dead, which prompts Fixer to question Asta's identity. Asta coldly responds, informing him that he is his employer while inquiring if Fixer has made up his mind yet. Fixer affirms that he has, instructing Asta to ensure the young one gets out safely as promised. Asta agrees. When Fixer asks Asta what he wants, Asta states that he wants men who will be cannon fodder, just as he mentioned before. Asta tells Fixer that after this, he is free to do whatever he wants, and Fixer acknowledges it. Asta then urges Fixer to drop the formalities, explaining that even though he might be 2 years older, it doesn't mean anything. Fixer watches in shock, struggling to believe that Asta is truly 2 years older. At the same time, he begins to wonder if Asta might be an old mage who drank a rejuvenation elixir. One of Fixer's men soon arrives to inform him that they are finished. Fixer orders them to prepare everything, emphasizing that they can't keep Asta, their employer, waiting. Once the men have gathered, Fixer instructs that half of them, the experienced ones, will venture deep into the forest while the younger ones will head outside. Fixer motivates his men, urging them to protect the name of Aviat. The mercenaries begin to volunteer for the mission, and Fixer notices their enthusiasm. He tells them to keep their mouths shut, emphasizing to the younger ones that he doesn't want to hear anything from them. He suggests they get a move on, but despite his insistence, they are reluctant to leave. Asta watches this unfold from behind. Ray then arrives, asking Asta if it's true that the Aviat mercenaries are coming with them. Asta confirms this, teasing Ray by asking if he's deaf. Ray thinks this is a positive development, noting that the mercenaries are monster hunters who have protected the base camp for nearly 200 years. Hearing this, Asta realizes that they are skilled fighters who know how to secure a victory. Ray expresses confidence that any monster would not pose much of an obstacle for him, but he believes the mercenaries would still be a great help. Asta hopes this turns out to be true and asks Ray and Oberon if they have packed their bags. Oberon assures him that he is fully packed, but Asta teases him, saying he won't need anything if he ends up a dead man. Ray yells at Asta not to jinx his fate, but then asks Asta to take him along if they survive the whole ordeal. Asta realizes that the man is taking a gamble with his life, but to be fair, he won't find a reliable lifeline other than himself. If he doesn't get killed by Declan, that is. Asta then tells Ray that he is free to do whatever he wants. Ray thanks him, assuring him that he will do his best, but he can't go as far as selling his soul. Asta then meets with Fixer and asks if he can persuade someone for him before they leave. Asta asks him who the person is and where they are. Fixer replies that they are at the second base camp. He wants Asta to go to the second base camp to persuade the base camp chief Hallig on his behalf. He mentions that even if Hallig cannot come, he would like to borrow his capable vice, as he is a brilliant tactician. Meanwhile, at the second base camp, it seems they are also preparing to leave for the fourth base camp. Hallig's vice expresses that all that remains is to clear out the facilities, but Hallig counters that there is no need for this. He believes that even if goblins move in, they can simply take it back later. However, deep down, the vice is anxious about this plan, as it only holds true if they return alive. Hallig then reflects on how everything feels like vanity. He once thought he had it all when he ascended to the position of chief. Hallig tells his vice that he wishes to die quickly, so he can take his position and understand what he is talking about. The vice scolds Hallig, urging him to stop making morbid jokes, as if they mean nothing. He expresses his disapproval of Hallig's unusual behavior, suggesting that it might be because it is his time to die. The vice is shocked by this revelation, and it soon dawns on him that Hallig plans to join Fixer and his men. He yells at Hallig, warning him that the Destroyer is not a monster to be trifled with, as it hasn't even mutated yet, but has already begun to alter the forest. He questions why someone like Hallig is getting involved in such matters, insisting that he was never like that. Hallig then asks his vice what kind of person he believes he is, to which he responds that he is someone seeking a big payout. Hallig informs his vice that every seasoned warrior will be present, indicating that the battle will be worthwhile. Despite this, Hallig's vice believes it isn't worth the risk and urges him to reconsider. He mentions that the men are already prepared to flee and insists that Hallig should rethink his decision to head to the fourth base camp. Hallig observes that his vice is afraid of dying, and the vice confirms this, stating he has no desire to meet his ancestors just yet. Hallig then shocks him by telling him to become the chief, allowing him the chance to sit in the chief's seat, even if just once. He emphasizes that he is free to run things however he sees fit. The man stands there in disbelief, as Hallig declares him the new chief of the second base camp. Hallig encourages him to rename the camp to something that suits him. What is meant to be a heartfelt farewell takes a dark turn when a strange arm suddenly impales Hallig's chest from behind. It is Kellogg, who maniacally declares that he is sending Hallig and his men to the afterlife. The vice screams in horror at the sight, but to protect the new chief, Hallig channels all his strength into kicking him high, away from the danger zone. The new chief watches as his former boss dies at Kellogg's hands. Hallig's last words to him urge him to live, for he is now the new chief.